In Naruto, I start with a Seireitei. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination. So don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like. And if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 1, The cheat code arrived, but I'm doomed. My cheat program is delayed, the download progress is stuck at 99%. Is it disconnected? Can it reconnect? 3 years ago, Kaguya Nami, transmigrated into the Shikatsumayaku clan, stared at the spine pulled from her body, her mind inexplicably filled with a disconnected cheat program. Her eyes were filled with despair. Tomorrow the whole clan is going to rebel. If nothing unexpected happens, we'll all die, except for one survivor. It's definitely not me. My cheat program isn't online yet, what should I do? Waiting online, it's urgent. 3 years later, Kaguya Nami looked at a room full of stupid clansmen whose brains seemed calcified. She closed her eyes, but the cheat program in her mind remained unmoved. Hopeless. Kaguya Nami decided to lie down and await death, giving up the struggle. She was too tired. You never know which will come first, death or a cheat program. Death? At this moment, Kaguya Nami died at the age of 12. 3 days after his death, Kaguya Nami's mangled body was soaked in formalin. He no longer needed to grapple with the question of the order of death and his cheat code. Now was the soundest sleep he'd had in 3 years. He could finally have a good dream. The price was a hole pierced through his neck and white bones protruding from half his chest, all jaggedly broken, as if ripped from his body by some grotesque weapon, or as if gnawed by a terrifying monster. The scene before his death, the murderer, didn't matter. In short, Kaguya Nami was dead. How horrible. No heartbeat, no breath, the pungent smell of chemicals permeating his veins, his deathly pale eyes staring wide-eyed, proof of death in the absolute medical and physical sense. However, strangely, Kaguya Nami's brain was still functioning. A dead man actually felt his own death. Damn it, another nail has been pried off the coffin lid of science. The culprit is the belated cheat system knocking on the door of the coffin, being unreasonable. Can the dead man lying inside still be saved? Welcome to the mastermind system. You've all misjudged me. I'm definitely a good person, or black good cheat for short. Now online, host's vital signs detected as disappearing, cheat system cannot function properly. In response to the current situation, the backup plan is activated, readjusting the host's initial life form and replacing the corresponding newbie gift pack. The plan is in progress. A pattern similar to a boot screen silently ran in his mind. Kaguya Nami didn't know how to understand her current bizarre state. Her dead fish-colored eyes reflected the gruesome state of the corpse in the formalin water, and she remained motionless. Suddenly, a thin white thread emerged from the chest, followed by countless others. From the shattered internal organs, from the broken bone fragments, from the necrotic muscle tissue, from the dried up and congealed blood vessels, these threads abruptly emerged, intertwining and weaving together like countless shards of pristine white porcelain growing from the corpse, slowly but steadily spreading and covering the entire body, inside and out. They were perfectly sealed, leaving only the pale eyeballs exposed, yet a ring of black pupils appeared as if rising from the depths of the Dead Sea. Resurrection? Kaguya Nami felt a cold touch of porcelain shards covering her body, a long-lost sensation only the living could possess. Or rather, strictly speaking, she was no longer considered alive. Because according to the lines of text flowing through her consciousness, original corpse container modified perfect armored Shinigami ghoul, advantages, perfect, disadvantages, cannot be easily replaced, retains original appearance, looks are mediocre. Fragile soul of a deceased human upgraded Shinigami newbie gift pack replaced with a Seireitei, sealed. So, I've upgraded from a human to a Shinigami? This body feels no different from a living person's, but it's actually an armed ghoul modified from a corpse. This seems like a win. Then there's no problem. The only thing that made Kaguya Nami somewhat resentful was that this cheat seemed to have an incorrect rating of her looks. Kaguya Nami's consciousness immersed itself in the depths of the cheat system, where a narrow crack stretched out, like a frozen chasm in the void of darkness. On the other side of the chasm connected to another world sealed by time, a sprawling, ancient complex of buildings, arranged in a circular formation surrounding the center, with towering, Massive walls at the outermost edge. The Seireitei. This cheat system I've been waiting for 3 years wasn't for nothing. A Seireitei as a bonus right from the start. Looks like this is the correct strategy for turning your luck around, dying once first. Kaguya Nami looked at the Seireitei from this side of the chasm, completely unaware that if one looked up from the Seireitei's location, it would be as if a terrifying vertical eye in the dark sky was overlooking the entire world. The focal length of the view can be freely zoomed in and out. From afar, one can overlook the entire Seireitei. Up close, one can observe every street, the mottled and old walls, the smooth yet rough pavement, the winding and deep corridors, all shrouded in the traces of time. And there are rows of stiff, motionless black-robed Shinigami, like countless lifelike wax figures, all uniformly gazing upwards, as if they have been isolated and stripped away from the passage of time. At the very front of these figures, ascending the steps to the central platform, 13 figures of varying expressions and builds stand in a row. Their black Shinigami robes and white hori still seem to flutter in the air. Though frozen in the frame, they still exude a chilling, sinister aura from their very souls. It's as if they might open their eyes and draw their swords at any moment, ready to devour their prey, gain ownership of Seireitei, sealed, automatically inherit the Soul King's status, and use achievement points to unlock characters, items, and buildings within Seireitei. The explanatory subtitles flowed across her retina, and Kaguya Nami felt a surge of excitement. So this fully staffed, overflowing Seireitei is mine? Fine, I'll drop the act. I'm coming clean. I am the illegitimate child of the previous Soul King, the current Soul King, Kaguya Nami. 4 minutes and 4 seconds later, Kaguya Nami's emotions gradually calmed down. An inheritance. Achievement points? Is this the legendary inheritance tax? Kaguya Nami realized that this enormous inheritance wasn't unconditional. She needed to pay inheritance tax. As a Shinigami, this was outrageous, from on the sacredness of taxation, transcending life and death. Fortunately, as the Soul King, Kaguya Nami had a slight privilege. She could pay the inheritance tax in installments. That is, for each inherited, unlocked, item, she would pay a tax, achievement points. Kaguya Nami narrowed her gaze, glancing around haphazardly, roughly counting in her mind the items that nominally belonged to her. Her mood was half excited and half melancholy. She discovered that when she lingered her gaze on a certain spot for a long time, the tax fee required to unlock it would appear above the other person's head. Most items and buildings have a fixed number above their names, for example, Spirit King Palace 100,000, True Central Spiritual Arts Academy 50,000, Royal Palace 30,000, Gotei 13 Dormitory 30,000, Spirit Particle Converter 50,000, Transcendent Gate 20,000. Prices for current buildings items are non-negotiable. Their functions and uses will be revealed after unlocking. A smaller number of items and buildings have a floating price range above their names, for example, Penitentiary Palace 4007, 000, Comprehensive Medical Clinic 8015, 000, Technology Development Bureau 10040, 000, Covert Operations Unit 12020, 000, Keto Clan Agency 9016, 000. Prices for current buildings items can fluctuate. Some similar items from the real world can be used to replace them at a discount. Their functions and uses will be revealed after unlocking. The Seireitei is a vast legacy, too large to be fully accounted for in a short time. My gaze has only swept over it briefly. The first things that catch my eye are naturally the large items, while many other miscellaneous things are less noticeable. For example, the Hagioku, which Kaguya Nami is most interested in, is currently unseen. Of course, even if she did see it, she could only admire it from afar. From the melancholy of a rich kid, taxes limit my imagination. Of course, what I see most are the densely packed black-robed Shinigami, each with a small square above their heads, indicating that prices are variable. Shinigami, a portion of the tax needs to be paid in the form of a corpse from the mortal world. The fresher and stronger the corpse, the higher the value. The explanation is clear and straightforward, and the prices of these Shinigami range from 2 digits to 5 digits and even 6 digits, fully validating the old saying in Soul Society, the difference between Shinigami is greater than the difference between a Shinigami and a pig. Even the sheer number of Shinigami on the ground might exist solely to highlight the 13 figures standing atop the tower, the captains of the Gotei 13. 1st Division Captain, Yamamoto Jinryusei Shigakuni, Captain Commander, 62,085, 000, 2nd Division Captain, Soifan 19034, 000, 3rd Division Captain, Ichimaru Jin 25037, 000, 4th Division Captain, Unhanaritsu 31048, 000, 5th Division Captain, Aizen Saosuke, 6th Division Captain, Kuchiki Byakuya 24036, 000, 13th Division Captain, Yukitake Chishiro 20035, 000. The most important legacy of the Seireitei is now yours. With just a small expense and the equivalent value of their corpses, you can unseal them and bring them back to the mortal world, making them powerful allies for your schemes. Such a bargain. What are you waiting for? P.S. The cash out is only used when unlocking characters, and a single character can only have their corpse cashed out once. A little bit? Kaguya Nami couldn't deny being tempted. She eagerly flipped to the achievements page, which displayed her current achievement points at 3,700, with detailed records of their sources, opened the newbie gift pack to receive initial achievement points 2,000, achieved achievement, I'm not human after death, gained achievement points 1,000, achieved achievement, I died? And came back to life, gained achievement points 500, achieved achievement, my stomach is full of formaldehyde, gained achievement points 200, 2,000 plus 1,000 plus 500 plus 200 equals 3,700. The calculation was correct. Kaguya Nami also confirmed that besides unlocking the legacy within the Seireitei, achievement points could also be used to spin the roulette wheel in the center of the achievements page for a lottery. 1,000 achievement points could be used for one draw. For a fleeting moment, Kaguya Nami even considered giving up on that inheritance from the Seireitei. What decent person would inherit an estate? Wouldn't it be more fulfilling to be a content and happy Shinigami, quietly drawing lots? I'll gamble and maybe I'll pull out something I can't afford. Humans, no, Shinigami, are prone to crooked thoughts when they're poor. Since there's a crooked path to take, why would Kaguya Nami choose the righteous one? The pain of saving money is nothing compared to the satisfaction of living paycheck to paycheck. Kaguya Nami decided to try 3 consecutive draws. Beep. Due to poor signal transmission in the ninja world, the cheat download was interrupted for 3 years. This vulnerability has now been fixed, and compensation is provided. Within 72 hours, all achievement points required to unlock the newbie pack, Seireitei, will be discounted by 90% for a limited time. Countdown 71h 59 minutes, the bold black text flashed across her retina, causing Kaguya Nami to pause in her draw. A 10% discount? Isn't this just a common consumer trap used by merchants? Kaguya Nami wouldn't easily fall for such a trick. Most importantly, even a 10% discount wasn't enough. To unlock any of the 13th Division captains, he needed a fresh corpse. Those overnight corpses soaked in formalin were unacceptable. No one can stop me from drawing lots, unless... Kaguya Nami touched each of his fellow corpses soaking in formalin in the morgue, receiving feedback that they were all deemed not fresh. He let out a long sigh of relief. He was immune to this shameless consumer trap. His attention returned to the lottery wheel. Creak. The metal door of the morgue scraped against the floor with a slight, grating sound. A ninja wearing a Kirigakure headband walked in, then his expression changed drastically. He stared in astonishment at a body inside, soaking wet, its surface and face covered in cracked white porcelain shards, its hands submerged in formalin, gently stroking the corpse while sighing deeply. The scene was extremely gruesome. Kaguya Nami's lottery drawing was interrupted once again. He looked at the ninja who pushed open the door, his expression behind the mask indescribably strange. He smacked his lips and asked suspiciously, "Huh? Is this destiny?" Chapter 2. Unlock or lottery, that is the question. Corpses have value and cannot be discarded casually. They must be either destroyed or recycled. This is a value system followed by all ninja villages, the underlying logic of which stems from the skewed technological development of the ninja world. When it comes to handling corpses, ninjas are absolutely professional. Some even decipher the corpses, extracting valuable information and reusing them as materials, basic operations for certain industry veterans. Therefore, the corpses produced in the village of the Blood Mist cannot be buried or burned at will. Even if some corpses were already badly mangled, they were still picked up and transported back to the morgue in the secret laboratory. The most recent batch of corpses delivered were from the Kaguya clan, who rebelled 3 days ago, and the one who handled them was Mutoda, the morgue keeper. Mutoda, male, 31 years old, Chunin, civilian ninja. Unlike the majority of people in the village who dare not speak out against the blood mist policy, Mutoto was a staunch supporter of it. He enjoyed seeing those once powerful bloodline clans quietly soaking in glass barrels filled with formalin. Mutoto's favorite pastime was piecing together fragmented corpses like a jigsaw puzzle before transporting them to the dissection table in the laboratory for autopsy, a perk of his job as the morgue manager. Now, night had fallen, and his colleagues at the experimental base had all gone home. Mutoto headed towards the morgue, intending to indulge his hobby. He pushed open the slightly rusty iron door. Suddenly, a wet, humanoid creature, seemingly covered in white scales, came into view, standing amidst a pile of glass tubs containing corpses. A blank mask faced him, and a muttered voice came from beneath it. He couldn't hear clearly, but the surprise in the tone sent a chill down Muto's spine. The tone was exactly the same as when he signed for the newly arrived corpses 3 days ago. Back then, there was a gruesomely mangled body, and he'd blurted out, "Huh? Only I could piece this back together, right?" Suddenly, Muto noticed an empty glass bin. That should have been the difficult-to-assemble corpse, his puzzle tonight. How could it be so empty, not a single piece? Where was his huge puzzle? Stolen? Did someone else share his hobby? Muto swallowed hard. He felt a surge of anxiety. Anyone who found a missing corpse and a strange, scaly figure in the morgue in the middle of the night would feel a chill run down their spine. The fact that he didn't jump to the conclusion of ghost stories was already a testament to his basic ninja instincts. Who are you? Why are you here? Mutoto drew a kunai and held it horizontally in front of his chest, assuming an attack stance. Kaguya Nami looked at Mutoto with some trouble. He couldn't answer either of the man's questions truthfully. Theoretically, he was already dead, and as for why he was here after death, that was a question for the people who carried the corpse. He had also inexplicably crawled out of the glass tank, still covered in formaldehyde. Kaguya Nami chose to remain silent. Countless experienced transmigrators had taught newcomers that if you chose silence, the other party would automatically fill in the blanks with the appropriate answer. So, he's too guilty to answer? Muto frowned, now calmer. He doesn't have the Karigakure headband insignia, and the scales covering his body might be some strange ninjutsu or bloodline limit. Is he a spy from another village, trying to steal a corpse from the Shikatsumayaku? The Kaguya clan is renowned for the Shikatsumayaku, an exceptionally powerful bloodline limit. It's perfectly understandable that other villages would covet it and want to steal a corpse or two for research. Kaguya Nami was ultimately forced to stop the lottery. Observing Muto's expression, he kindly reminded him, "You barging in without knocking is really putting me in a difficult position. So, could you pretend you didn't see me?" Faced with a destiny that had delivered itself to his door, Kaguya Nami was restraining himself, proving he was a good Shinigami radiating humanity. Mutoto was taken aback, unable to fathom what the strange man before him was up to. He gripped the kunai in his hand and quietly attached an explosive tag. "Don't get so agitated, it's just a misunderstanding, I meant no harm." Kaguya Nami noticed Mutoto's subtle actions. While gently reassuring him, she quickly opened her character template. Name, Kaguya Nami. Life form, Shinigami, perfect grade armored ghoul, identity 1/3, Lord of the Seireitei, Spirit King. Cards. 0/3 equipment. 0/6 health. 1660 energy. 910/910 strength. 17 agility. 21 spirit. 30 skills, Shikatsumayaku, ghoul, perfect superposition of Shikatsumayaku and armored ghoul, Shinigami basic ability pack, slash, fist, and Oni, an extremely rudimentary template, without a single explanation. Understanding it was entirely up to guesswork. The font was completely gray, offering no room for any addition operations. The skill descriptions were also extremely brief. What's worse, the skill bar didn't even display the few ninjutsu the original owner had learned. Was it a lack of recognition, or discrimination? She let out a soft breath. The cards and equipment are all empty. The only ability I have is the Death God set, and it's only at the beginner level. So, my status as the Soul King is just a blank slate? From beginning to end, it's all been cheat codes painting me a rosy picture? A memory suddenly appeared in Kaguya Nami's mind. In that memory, besides eating and sleeping, he practiced swordsmanship non-stop, Hokuda, Shunpo, Kido, within the 40th sequence, and, when happy or unhappy, He would pull his bones out of his body and wantonly whip, ravage, and hone them. This memory lasted a full 200 years. The lifespan of a death god is so monotonous, dull, and unadorned. And as the memories surfaced, the perfectly equipped prosthetic body instantly matched, completely digesting the memories into bodily instincts. 200 years of tedious training was enough to hone any skill into conditioned reflex. In an instant, the 200 years of experience boost seemed to transform Kaguya Nami entirely. Although the stats on her attribute panel remained unchanged, the Kaguya Nami of a second ago could easily kill countless others. The difference was roughly equivalent to the difference between a bronze player and a boosted player in actual gameplay. It was simply outrageous harmonious network, report boosting. However, this still couldn't change Kaguya Nami's judgment of the cheater's cunning nature. The so-called lottery, the so-called unbanning, were actually just, want to get stronger? Then spend money. And the limited time discount, translated into plain language, is just, first recharge bonus. In Muto's eyes, it was as if, in the blink of an eye, the scaly monster opposite him, though seemingly motionless, had been replaced. Its aura shifted abruptly, becoming strangely heavy and oppressive. Muto's hand trembled, launching the kunai. Simultaneously, he rapidly formed hand seals, unleashing the Kirigakure's signature ninjutsu, the Kirigakure technique. Moisture in the air condensed into mist, obscuring his vision. Almost instantly, Muto saw the monster raise its hand. White scales exploded and fell away, revealing a human hand. Then, pale, bony fingers pierced the hand, transforming into a skeletal claw that reached for the incoming kunai. The moment the claw grasped the kunai, the bones twisted and closed, like a man-eating flower swallowing the kunai along with its explosive tags. The airtight bone seal completely blocked the explosion, only emitting a muffled tremor. Muto stared in disbelief, unable to believe his eyes. Bones? Braided into flour? Weren't the corpse bone pulse just wiped out? A barrage of questions uncontrollably flooded Muto's mind. Don't make too much noise at night. Please leave quietly. The voice reached his ears, seemingly still carrying a faint warmth. Muto's hair stood on end. The voice was right in front of him. In his trembling peripheral vision, he glimpsed a figure almost touching his ear. As the figure drew closer, he realized it only reached his chin. A dwarf or a child? The figure was raising an arm, one finger lightly pressed against its temple, the smell of gunpowder from the exploding explosive tag still lingering on the finger. Bang! Lips beneath the mask mimicked an onomatopoeia, the index finger cocking the gun, the fingertips splitting open to reveal the muzzle, and a white bone bullet shot out. The bullet piercing Muto's skull sprayed blood, the horror in his eyes fading as he collapsed heavily to the ground. Thank you. I'll make good use of your body. Half crouching, her bloodied fingertips touched the corpse. The external system displayed a corpse-qualified quality control label. Kaguya Nami's lips curled into a smile, ignoring the soul floating from the body. Souls invisible to ordinary people are crystal clear in the eyes of a Shinigami, gradually becoming transparent and disappearing as if drawn by some kind of rule. The soul was drawn to the Pure Land. The blank Soul King, not yet fully unlocked in the Seireitei, wasn't ready to compete with the Pure Land for customers. He released Muto's soul, leaving only his cheap shell. It's normal for a Shinigami to annihilate both body and soul when killed, but Muto's soul was able to return to the Pure Land. This was, of course, due to Kaguya Nami's mercy. She always remembered she was a good Shinigami. You've grasped the meaning of the cheat's name. Only by learning to be a good villain can you survive to the end. You've activated the event, the kind Grim Reaper, 1/10, hint. After the event is completed, you'll be scored based on 5 elements during the process. The score will affect the final reward. The 5 elements of the mastermind are darkness, filth, lies, falsehood, and cunning, forming a pentagonal pattern that clearly shows Kaguya Nami's good character. Kaguya Nami's eyes darted around, and she immediately understood the central message the cheat was trying to convey. She had been slightly conflicted about which character to unlock with the first corpse, but now she had a definite answer: new corpse discovered. Worth 2,000 achievement points. Would you like to perform artificial body modification? Yes, please select the target to unlock and pay the achievement points. The captains of the Gotei 13 who met the unlocking conditions had unlocking icons flashing above their heads frequently, like young ladies throwing themselves at them. To be honest, Kaguya Nami was smitten with every single one of them, but unfortunately, there was only one bait. She could only fish out the most alluring, and also the most manipulative, fish in the pond first, I choose to unlock. As a complete newbie, I'm so excited to have published a book. I've heard from seniors that new books need extra care, so I'm shyly asking for some votes. Chapter 3 Unsealing, even squinty-eyed people are monsters. A sinister black aura emanated from Mudo's corpse. His facial features were smoothed out like a blank sheet of paper by an invisible force, then, like a painted mask, eerily raised angular lines, gradually redrawing slender eyes, a delicate nose, and thin, willow leaf lips. An exquisitely crafted mask was being painted onto the blank face. The eyes were not yet open, the mask was not yet fully formed, but the corners of his mouth had already formed a false curve, as if this smile had long been an integral part of the mask on his face. The corpse was also being stretched and deformed like clay, as if molded into a shape perfectly suited to his body by an invisible hand. Unsealing original price 37,000 points, 2,000 points discount for finding a qualified corpse, and a 90% discount promotion. Actual payment achievement points 3,500, calculation formula, 37000, 2000, 10% equals 3,500, character unsealed, Ichimaru Jin, you have gained the allegiance of Gin Ichimaru, captain of the 3rd Division of the Gotei 13, P.S., under the constraints of the cheat, this character cannot betray in any way. The annotation flashed through her mind, the small print of the P.S. was highlighted in red. Notice how it said cannot betray, not would not betray. Kaguya Nami pondered the deeper meaning hidden behind the words, lost in thought. The corpse's twisting and reshaping would take another 2 minutes. With nothing else to do, Kaguya Nami slowly removed the porcelain shards covering her body, revealing the Shinigami uniform that came with the Gotei. It was a flowing kimono paired with long trousers, entirely black, symbolizing death and mystery. A pale hoary banner, draped over her back, extending to her calves, was embroidered with a black diamond pattern in the center, bearing the obscure and ancient Shikigami language, King. The only thing he hadn't removed was the mask on his face. Even though this was the first time in 2 lifetimes he'd aspired to be a mastermind behind the scenes, Kaguya Nami understood one basic principle: those behind the scenes couldn't easily reveal their faces, their persona would crumble. His only problem was that he lacked the 5 essential elements of the mastermind: black, a black heart, conscience. Forget about it, dirty methods, I just don't wash my hands, is that wrong? Lying, a string of lies, you've all been fooled by me, haven't you? False, I'm a good person, how could I possibly be a bad person? Shadowy, entrust your life to me and you're safe. Backstabbing? I hate that. These are the essential underworld pentagons of a mastermind. Kaguya Nami was being realistic. How could he possibly possess these rare abilities? He had none of them. In his past life, he was a small-time horror film director. Although he excelled at creating villainous personas, explaining the emotional journeys of victims, and helping actresses immerse themselves in their roles, all his productions were guaranteed to pass censorship. In this life, he opened his eyes to find himself in a dangerous situation, surrounded by a group of mad relatives with calcified brains and severe self-destructive tendencies. All he heard every day was fighting and killing, but he still yearned for the light and was not assimilated. Even though his hands were stained with blood while trying to survive, it was all justified self-defense. This fundamentally proves that Kaguya Nami is a good person. The Grim Reaper's cheat code binds him to play a high-level villain like the mastermind behind the scenes. Is it because a serious misjudgment was made about his soul? Cheat code. Being a villain isn't like making a movie. You can't just talk the talk. So, I need a partner on the road who can guide me, just like Sima Yi needed Xiao Shuang, Zhou Shiren needed Lu Xun, and Seireitei Hirozen needed Shimura Danzo. Kaguya Nami thought to herself. His most favored mentor and friend was naturally Aizen Sasuke, but the latter was so reserved that he wouldn't even show his price. Kaguya Nami couldn't help but suspect that Aizen was still a novice. So, he ultimately chose Ichimaru Jin, a character born with a villain's face. Even whose squinted eyes are those of a sinister monster, as if hearing his inner praise. Ichimaru Jin's mask-like, exquisitely crafted face suddenly opened its long, narrow eyes, his pale blue pupils reflecting Kaguya Nami so close to him. A terrifying spiritual pressure, accompanied by a sinister killing intent, instantly enveloped her, only to vanish without a trace in the blink of an eye. The speed was so fast that Kaguya Nami almost thought it was an illusion, but he was naturally not that naive. Was it the true thought that surfaced the moment he woke up? He wanted to kill me, and then gave up, because of the constraints of the cheat system? Kaguya Nami's expression was also hidden behind the mask. With 200 years of tedious training memories, it wasn't just about assimilating skills. His temperament seemed to have been eroded by time, quietly transforming into a deep pool, calm and profound. He glanced at Ichimaru Jin without showing any emotion. At this moment, the other party had narrowed his eyes, and all his true emotions were replaced by a hypocritical smile. Ichimaru Jin watched with great interest as his clay-like body was gradually shaped, completely ignoring the intense pain he felt from being molded after waking up early. Only when his entire body was completely shaped did the lingering pain slowly disappear. Armghoul? No, this isn't some inferior product made by Mayuri Kiratsuchi. There's no sense of repulsion between the soul and the vessel, and the exchange of spiritual particles with the outside world feels completely unimpeded. Is this a perfect ghoul with theoretically 100% compatibility? Not only does it not hinder the soul's recovery rate, but it even provides an extra layer of robust outer protection for the soul. Of course, conversely, this vessel is also a kind of confinement. As long as I have even the slightest bad thought, my body will automatically strip me of my control. Is this the new Spirit King's method? The spiritual pressure seems quite weak, but the methods are rather strange. Gin Ichimaru squinted, and a contract appeared in his mind. The contract was covered with densely packed characters, strictly defining his obligations, such as obeying the new Spirit King's orders, not betraying him, and being bound to the Spirit King by life and death. Moreover, only the Spirit King could actively dissolve this contract, etc. As for the authenticity of this contract, Gin Ichimaru had already tested it the moment he awoke, and the experience was far from pleasant. He could see that the characters on the contract were actually countless wriggling worms, densely packed into his soul. It couldn't have been a simple worm nest. Now, both my body and soul have betrayed me completely. Is this the new Spirit King's trust? It seems my best option until I find a way to break the contract is to obediently follow orders and play the role of the most loyal 3rd Division captain, protecting the Spirit King. Gin Ichimaru was speechless, but fortunately, playing the loyal role was second nature to him. Furthermore, the few remaining memories from Utoda's corpse were also digested by Gin Ichimaru. Although only a small portion remained, it still made Gin Ichimaru realize that this was a completely unfamiliar new world. Reaching a new world was an ambition even the terrifying Aizen Saosu couldn't achieve. The profound implications behind it were chilling upon closer examination, and the smile on Gin Ichimaru's lips grew even warmer. He stood up, slowly smoothing the wrinkles in his clothes, the same Shinigami uniform as Kaguya Nami's, the difference being the diamond pattern on the back, the symbol of the 3rd Division, the number 3. The process was quiet, eerily so. Kaguya Nami, too, didn't break the silence. Simultaneously, she received the contract's contents and related information in her mind. So, she patiently waited. A person sealed away in the constraints of time for who knows how long, suddenly awakened to face a complete stranger as their superior and a draconian, binding contract, needed time to process the company's rules. The company's, Seireitei, legal representative, Kaguya Nami, firmly believed that HR, an external helper, could help the employee, Gin Ichimaru, complete onboarding training as quickly as possible. Kaguya Nami watched as Gin Ichimaru's smile grew increasingly warm. She watched him straighten his clothes, take a step back, then grip the short sword at his waist with his right hand, place his left hand on his heart, and slowly bow in greeting. The entire process was incredibly elegant and smooth, like that of a respectful subordinate. I truly never imagined that the first one awakened from the seal would be someone like me, ranked last among the 13th Division. What a pleasant surprise. Thank you for your trust, Lord Spirit King. Gin Ichimaru will certainly do his utmost to fulfill every task for you. The true master of disguise, with his squinting eyes, was on full display. You're too modest. Among the 13 Gotei 13, Captain Gin Ichimaru is the one I have the highest hopes for. I've only inherited the title of Soul King, but my strength and capacity are far from sufficient to lead the Seireitei. I'll need Captain Gin Ichimaru's guidance in the future. Kaguya Nami said sincerely. Please don't call me Soul King, just call me Nami. No way. Gin Ichimaru quickly refused. The Soul King's status is extremely noble. No captain of the 13 Gotei 13 dares to call the Soul King by his name. Otherwise, it would violate the laws of the Seireitei and they would be banished to the penitentiary to repent. Then let's call him chairman. From now on, we'll set up a roundtable council in the Seireitei. All important matters will be decided by the council. Each captain will have a seat. With everyone's collective wisdom and efforts, the Seireitei can restore its glory in this new world more quickly. Kaguya Nami raised the banner of democracy and resolutely resisted the childish title of Soul King. The previous one, called the Spirit King, was turned into a human stick. What bad luck! Degree Cyrillic letter D degree. You should have already realized that this is an unfamiliar world. Kaguya Nami changed her title and quickly changed the subject. Yes, I can breathe in the air of this world, which is filled with a strange and rotten smell. This is a world without the guidance of the Grim Reaper, and souls and humanity are filled with filth and ugliness. Ichimaru Jin's words were not false. Moreover, I absorbed some memory fragments from this body, which also confirms that this is a distorted world. It needs to be purified by the Seireitei, President Nami. Before that, we need to find a way to escape the Blood Mist Village. Kaguya Nami was very satisfied with the initiative shown by Ichimaru Jin and gave the first order. Of course, President Nami. Gin Ichimaru quickly assumed his role and answered dutifully, I think we only need to make a little noise to cover our escape. What method? Hollow. Gin Ichimaru's eyes narrowed into slits as usual, his voice completely flat. I'm curious, shouldn't ninjas, these hollow and twisted creatures, become hollows after death? Kaguya Nami scratched her mask with her fingertips, her eyes involuntarily narrowing slightly, probably from the close proximity. Oh no. It's the feeling of falling in love. Thanks to Yao for the beautiful cover, although it won't pass censorship, haha, it's just so, Cyrillic letter D. Practice makes perfect, a newbie boldly asking for votes. Chapter 4 Death's Blacklist. Under the cover of night, the Blood Mist Village resembled a ghost town. The streets were deserted, the wind howled, and a play of rebellion and suppression, a drama of white terror, was staged every few days. Everyone had to participate, no one could evade the rules. The director of this play was the fourth Mizukage, Yagura Karachi, but the producers behind the scenes were too numerous to recount. The Kaguya clan had the privilege of playing the role of rebels a few days ago, adding a dramatic touch to the play, the lingering echoes of fear still reverberating in the hearts of every living person. Kirigakure had a curfew, which didn't even need to be enforced. Two figures, one tall and one short, walked along the edges of buildings, their black robes blending seamlessly with the darkness. Their steps were light and silent, their auras suppressed to the extreme, like two lifeless corpses walking in the night. There aren't many patrols in the village, but there are Embu ninjas stationed at the entrances and exits 24 hours a day. Gin Ichimaru glanced at the moon, which was obscured by thick fog, and then turned to Nami Kaguya. A dark and windy night. Nami Kaguya sighed from behind her mask, not directly rejecting Gin Ichimaru's hint. Doesn't the transformation of a hollow take 72 hours? A hollow is a monster formed from the distortion and hollowing out of a soul, and a ninja stained with blood and whose soul is already twisted and incomplete might already be considered a half-hollow in human skin. Gin Ichimaru spoke roughly, but his tone was meaningful. What we need to do is help the half-hollows break free from the constraints of their bodies and give them the freedom to breathe. This should also be their desire. Nami Kaguya did not question Gin Ichimaru's authority in understanding and creating hollows. Ah, is that so? Kaguya Nami stammered. But that still doesn't change the fact that creating hollows is creating slaughter, isn't it? That's wrong. Ichimaru Jin was shocked. He almost thought he'd misheard. Was this successor to the Soul King discussing the right and wrong of killing with him? Was she afraid of being tormented by her conscience? Was Kaguya Nami a kind-hearted Shinigami? Of course not. This world is filled with resentment and distortion, and the culprits behind it all are these ninjas. Therefore, this is not wrong killing, on the contrary, it's revealing the deformed and ugly souls of ninjas to the world. It's actually a kind of redemption and purification, Nami-kun. Ichimaru Jin convincingly played the role of a loyal subordinate. To make his explanation even more believable, he even slightly imitated Aizen Sosok's speaking style from his memories. His persuasive power was off the charts. Kaguya Nami was instantly convinced. She suddenly realized, so my understanding was too narrow. I understand. Since it's about purification and redemption, then please let me create the first list of people. I know who needs purification the most. As soon as she finished speaking, Kaguya Nami pulled out a notebook from her pocket, bit her finger, and quickly wrote down a string of names and their backstories. Her writing was fluid and effortless, as if she had recited it countless times from memory. Nagato Kazuya, this person is cruel and ruthless, repeatedly using companions as bait during missions. Not only does she lack compassion and pity, but she also has no sense of public morality. Once, while eating, she deliberately spat a mouthful of phlegm onto a passerby but refused to apologize. Her attitude was appalling, and she needs education and purification. Home address, XXXXXXX, single and living alone, Jew County, male 2, greedy and cunning. Most of his comrades on missions are dissatisfied with him. According to an insider, during his time as mission leader, he often shamelessly withheld his team members' mission pay, relying on his seniority. He should be removed from the list. Home address, XXXXXXX, single and living alone, Nagane Yujiro, has severe antisocial personality disorder. He frequently spreads divisive thoughts and remarks, and has repeatedly insulted the entire Kaguya clan behind their backs. According to a passerby, the language used was extremely vulgar and offensive, causing physical discomfort. He should be removed from the list. Home address, XXXXXXX, living with his brother, Kong, carries a weapon and parades around town. He is adept at seducing respectable men and women, causing instability in other people's family relationships. He is incorrigible despite repeated warnings, a kind-hearted single man, with the courage to offer himself to Tigress, attempted to educate her and persuade her to repent, only to be mocked and ridiculed, causing him severe emotional trauma. He is a prime example of someone who doesn't appreciate kindness and willingly falls into depravity, deserving redemption. Home address, XXXXXXX, single? Living alone? Gin Ichimaru stared dumbfounded at Kaguya Nami, who effortlessly wrote down dozens of names in one breath. I feel like I've been tricked. Who gave me the courage to believe that President Nami is inherently kind? Gin Ichimaru looked at Kaguya Nami, who seemed to have stopped writing, and took the notebook. His hand stiffened, the thin pages felt incredibly heavy. He seemed to have, perhaps, possibly, glimpsed a tiny bit of the true face hidden behind Kaguya Nami's mask. How petty and vindictive must someone be to remember all these trivial matters so vividly? Gin Ichimaru quickly scanned the notebook. Strangely, every name had a brief, understated biography followed by an anonymous passerby, kind person, or insider. He couldn't help but suspect they all shared a common identity. As a loyal subordinate, should I ask this question, or pretend to be clueless to fit my persona? Even when disguised as Aizen Sasuke, Jin had never felt so lost. Time was limited, and he'd only written a little for now, a slight regret in Kaguya Nami's heart. He looked up at Gin Ichimaru, whose smile was stiff, and understood what the other wanted to ask. He explained earnestly, "Don't worry, these passers-by aren't me. I chose this group to purify entirely out of objectivity, without any subjective factors." Gin Ichimaru completely believed him and sincerely praised, to be able to remember the affairs of countless unrelated people so well, President Nami is truly remarkable. In your hands, Seireitei will surely regain its former glory. I just have a keen eye for observation, Kaguya Nami replied modestly, her eyes seemingly sparkling. Are these names enough? If not, I can. I understand President Nami's desire to bring them salvation, but with dawn approaching, there's probably not enough time. We can only choose a few lucky ones to save. The rest will likely have to continue to wallow in the sea of suffering in this world for a while longer. In a daze, Gin Ichimaru saw a shadow of Sosuke Aizen and Nami Kaguya, but there seemed to be some differences. He felt inexplicably tired, yet he accurately selected 8 names from those complex stories that were most harmful and insulting to passers-by. Very good. Nami Kaguya was very satisfied with the ability and competence displayed by Gin Ichimaru, and then casually ticked off another name. Add one more, and we'll have 9. Event, the Kind Reaper, 1/10. Nami Kaguya was shrewd and thought that since she was going to purify anyway, she might as well try to complete this event at the same time, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. 9 isn't a round number, what's the point of making it 9? Gin Ichimaru just thought this was another strange quirk of President Nami and didn't ask any more questions. He scanned the names ticked on the list and simultaneously drew an action map in his mind. First one, Kazuya Nagafuji. The death knell's voice carried on the wind, and the dark robes rippled in the night. Listen, death is knocking at the door. Chapter 5 The Birth of the Void. A short, sharp knock on the door, in sync with his heartbeat. Nagato Kazuya woke with a start from a nightmare, A bizarre and vivid dream within a dream. In the dream, it was his own home, the furniture arranged exactly as it was, so realistic it felt like reality. He was lying in his own bed, yet felt a tightness in his chest, unable to breathe, as if someone was pressing down on him, rendering him immobile. His muscles and bones felt stiff and numb, as if his body had been injected with anesthesia, pieces of it disconnected. He was terrified, desperately trying to open his eyes, but his eyelids were like rusted, locked shutters, barely managing to open a crack. His vision was blurred by sticky rust, and he could only vaguely make out a figure standing beside his bed. The person beside the bed seemed to notice him opening his eyes and bent down, bringing their face close. It was a pale face without wrinkles or pores, a chilling smile seemingly painted on that face. For some reason, he felt he wasn't seeing a person, but a black and white portrait of a dead person, a truly horrifying sight. He jolted awake. Before him lay a lifeless, bloodless face with closed eyes, himself. He was sprawled on his own body, his hands twisted into viscous claws, tearing at his own flesh. Blood and bits of flesh splattered everywhere, on the bed, on the walls. The corpse is me? Then who am I tearing at the corpse? Did I kill myself? No, I think I heard a knock, and then, a short knife. The hilt plunged into my heart, piercing my back and pulling out a chain. Then the hilt reversed, revealing the blade, and shattered the chain. One end of the chain was originally bound to. The memories were bizarre, absurd, and incomplete, making it impossible for him to tell if he was still dreaming or still living in reality. He stared blankly down at the corpse, seeing a mangled hole in its chest, inside which lay a contaminated heart, emitting a foul stench yet still beating. Thump, thump thump. Was he hearing a knock or a heartbeat? Was the corpse truly dead, or merely clinging to life? He looked down at himself in confusion, only to see a hideous hole in his chest, crawling within white, writhing creatures that were growing wildly. As he tore at the original corpse, the white creatures seemed to be stimulated, spreading and eroding his body at an alarming speed. Who am I? Who am I? I am Nagafuji Kazuya. His face contorted in pain, he groaned unconsciously, making a final struggle. A futile struggle. In my experience, he can only hold on for a maximum of 3 hours. Standing by the bed, Ichimaru-jin watched for a while longer. After all, it was the first ninja to transform into Hollow, holding a certain commemorative significance. He turned and nodded to Kaguya Nami, who was sitting in a chair, indicating that the first target's purification was complete and they could leave. Like watching a CG scene from a horror game, Kaguya Nami's professional habits from her past life as a director kicked in again. She silently rated Ichimaru-jin's footage in her mind for its lighting, plot, special effects, and editing 7.3 on Dubbin. Kaguya Nami, having developed a strong immunity to gore and R-rated scenes in her previous life as a director, felt even more alienated and out of place in this life. She viewed the world through a cold filter, and now, with her body transformed into a cyborg, her soul felt even colder towards it. As a director, she had naturally analyzed the character she was meant to portray, Kaguya Nami, as follows: a family of madmen with calcified brains, a village ruled by bloodshed. This was the purest sensory experience this world offered her after her transmigration, utterly devoid of any attachment or bondage. Unable to find emotional resonance, she naturally struggled to empathize with this world. She was like an NPC stripped of emotions, coldly observing this equally ruthless world. The appearance of the cheat code was like loading a system into the NPC, injecting him with renewed vitality. He was forced to be a ninja, he was forced to be a Grim Reaper, he didn't actually like either. But as a director, following the career plan set by his cheat system, using this monotonous and dull world as a backdrop to reweave colorful storylines, he was willing to accept it. Directing was his beloved career in his past life, and if he could strive for it in this life as well, perhaps that would be the last gift his past self left him. So, this time, I can say I'm directing and starring myself. Action. Kaguya Nami tapped her mask with her fingers, making a crisp click sound, mimicking the sound of clapperboards on a film set. Nagato Kazuya was also attracted by the sound and entered into this filming. It must be so painful, it feels like you've been given a new body, you don't know if you're dead or alive, even your past memories are starting to blur, you've even forgotten who you are. This feeling must be so painful, believe me, I've had a similar experience, only I in this world can understand your anger and pain. The empty, pale mask only had holes for 2 eyes, like a faceless ghost. No one would believe a single word spoken from behind that mask, But the last vestige of thought in Nagato Kazuya made him believe it. After all, that ghost-like mask seemed to be the same as the face that was being eroded and covered by it. Who am I? Half of Nagato Kazuya's face had already been eroded by the mask, his hoarse voice had difficulty speaking, and he was gradually losing the ability to speak. I'm here to help you, to rescue you from the body of Nagafuji Kazuya. Kaguya Nami stood a step away, pointing to the gruesome corpse on the bed, and said softly, that corpse is Nagafuji Kazuya, a very cruel and twisted villain, and you are the poor soul imprisoned within his body. I saw the struggle deep within your soul, so I came to help you free yourself from his body. Me, monster? No, the most twisted monster is always a human, and you are not a monster. You did nothing wrong. It was this person and this world that polluted your soul. The ones who are wrong are those outside who dragged the world into the abyss, the whole world. And what wrong could you possibly have done? You look so helpless, so lonely. Kaguya Nami's voice was magnetic, her words filled with human kindness and compassion. Standing at the door, Gin Ichimaru's eyes were strange. He was utterly baffled as to what Chairman Nami was doing. Come on, weren't you the one who chose the people on the list? Don't you know who caused Nagato Kazuya's miserable state? Who are you trying to impress with this compassionate act? There's no need to act for me, is there? What's the point of acting for Nagato Kazuya? Of course, to play the role of an excellent subordinate, one must learn to bury all doubts in one's heart, while carefully using spiritual pressure to restrain Nagato Kazuya. To prevent this brainless hollow from making irrational moves during the transformation process. Kaguya Nami was satisfied with Ichimaru Jin's performance. He continued to say to Nagafuji Kazuya, even if the whole world thinks you're a monster, I won't, because I know very well that you're not the one who caused all this, my friend. I know you'll soon forget what I said, and you'll be completely redeemed and purified, but I hope that before that, you can feel that in the last vestiges of your sanity, you have a friend who accompanied you through your final loneliness. That friend is Kaguya Nami. And you're not a monster either. You have a special name. Hollow. Nagafuji Kazuya knelt on the bed, feeling as if his soul was about to split apart. One eye was looking at the corpse beneath him, and the other at Kaguya Nami. Slowly, both eyeballs were completely covered by white erosion, and the pale, smooth mask only reflected the equally pale mask. Your kindness moved Nagafuji Kazuya's last remaining regret, event, the Kind Reaper, 2/10. It was getting late, and Kaguya Nami still had a few friends she needed him to see off. She bid farewell to Nagafuji Kazuya, politely closed the door, and left. Chapter 6 Extraction Skills. 2 hours flew by, event, the Kind Grim Reaper, 10/10. Kaguya Nami's friends, on their deathbeds, successively acknowledged his kind nature. His sacrifice of sleep to help them achieve spiritual redemption and purification had not been in vain. A win-win situation. All the visits went smoothly. Even the one or two more short-tempered friends, after Kaguya Nami's gentle persuasion, quickly showed their most friendly understanding, gaining Kaguya Nami's precious friendship. The only regret was that Kao wasn't home. It's Kaguya Nami's fault for being too naive, otherwise, how could he not have realized that the dead of night is when this woman is most likely to be out and about, and how could she possibly stay home obediently? Kao had no idea what she had missed. This opportunity had been ruthlessly given away by Kaguya Nami. 9 hollows were successfully transformed in succession. Aside from intermittently and during Chairman Nami's strange performing habits, everything else went smoothly. Gin Ichimaru maintained a pleased expression throughout, noting the following in his experimental notebook: Ninja, a flawed race that has lost itself. Characteristics: monotonous and lacking in emotion, lacking complete and abundant humanity, easily manipulated and bewitched. An empty and distorted soul is the inevitable result of long-term emotional repression. After severing the causal chain, the transformation into hollow will be completed in a very short time, estimated time: 2 to 3 hours. Conclusion: a high-quality material very suitable for being transformed into hollow. To be verified, does the difference in world rules lead to differences in abilities after hollowification? Is hollowification observable to the naked eye? What are the characteristics of its manifestations? The possibility of advancing to higher levels after becoming ethereal, etc. Similarly, after leaving the crime scene, Kaguya Nami opened the event's settlement rewards and immediately understood what good deeds are rewarded meant. You have completed the event, the Kind Reaper, 10/10, event settlement. According to the Underworld Pentagon statistics, you have demonstrated the basic elements of the mastermind, namely black 83, dirty 50, lies 71, falsehood 85, and darkness 40. Conclusion: although my heart is dark and I tell lies, that is just my clumsy protective color. If you have eyes that are good at seeing the essence, how could you not see through my helpful nature? Only friends with similarly kind hearts will gain my friendship. Score 329, influence coefficient of this event. 3, final score 3293 equals 987, you have gained 987 achievement points. A dark heart, a string of lies? Is that talking about me? Why does this cheat always maliciously slander me? Is it trying to deduct my points? And what's the basis for this influence coefficient? No explanation provided. Is it for better behind-the-scenes manipulation? I might be getting ripped off. Kaguya Nami sighed, melancholic, silently enduring, recalling the fear of being dominated by incomprehensible payslips in her past life. She silently calculated her remaining achievement points. 1,187, just over the 1,000-point mark. Suddenly, Kaguya Nami couldn't control her wicked thoughts. A lottery? She'd already unlocked a captain-level character. This was like emptying her savings to marry a wife, then using her remaining savings to seduce someone at a club. She couldn't be called a scumbag, after all. The priorities were well balanced. A gamble to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. It wasn't prostitution or gambling, just testing her attributes. Lucky or unlucky, that was important. The monotonous script of saving money step by step to unlock everything felt too righteous, almost beneath the dignity of the mastermind. Kaguya Nami's heart burned with passion, her eyes gleaming, and the roulette wheel spun rapidly. All rewards in this roulette draw come from anime or games. The roulette's frantic spinning was like unveiling a mysterious club, revealing a world of all shapes and sizes, from voluptuous to alluring, coquettish, and alluring. Cards, equipment, talents, skills, miscellaneous items, etc., flash by in an instant, sparking endless fantasies and an unbearable itch. You have completed a draw. Obtain one of the skills inherited from Blood Demon Striggle. Name, Blood Sacrifice. Type, active skill. Quality, A. Details, releases blood to baptize an area. The sacrifice is completed after 2.9 seconds. All enemies within the area will be damaged and silenced. Mana cost, 120 sacrifice range. 60 meters damage. 240 silence duration. 6s cooldown. 12's note, Blood Demon Strigger is a hunter rigorously selected through ritual. More accurately, he is a loyal henchman of the evil gods, the Skinning Twins. He destroyed several countries, draining the blood of all the people for sacrifices. In this process, he honed his skills with blood to the pinnacle. He is a demon who manipulates blood. The infused skill was loaded into the armored ghoul, and simultaneously, some memory images played in Kaguya Nami's mind. She saw a mountain forged from blood, towering into the clouds, where a hunter wearing a hideous mask and gripping a blood-stained blade stood in the center of a blood altar, silent as a statue. The scene shifts to a devastated country, filled with wails and cries. Desiccated corpses and flowing blood litter the ground. A figure greedily breathes and walks through this desolate landscape, leaving a thick, misty fog of blood in its wake. The figure is shrouded in this bloody mist, appearing demonic and monstrous. It's like watching an extremely graphic and gory film. Kaguya Nami gasps in shock. The life of the Blood Demon Strigger is the epitome of villainy, truly deserving of the name. Compared to him, even the squinty-eyed man before her seems like a pure, innocent rabbit. Sigh. The special effects of this skill's release are too dazzling, the villain's aura too overwhelming. Kaguya Nami is genuinely worried she can't handle it. She doesn't even know how to assess her luck anymore. Is she a lucky person or an unlucky one? What's with this inexplicable restlessness within her? Gin Ichimaru, walking ahead, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He turned around with a smile, about to speak, when a piercing cry, like that of a baby, ripped through the silent night. The cry didn't seem to come from human vocal cords, but rather roared directly from a twisted, resentful soul, echoing powerfully throughout the world. A hollow has been born. Gin Ichimaru listened intently to the ripples in the air, a deep sense of Gankei, a complex emotion encompassing both emotion and reflection, playing on his lips. It's a friend saying goodbye. Kaguya Nami acknowledged receiving the signal from Nagafuji Kazuya. He licked his lips and solemnly said to Ichimaru, Jin, parting is always bittersweet, So let's not say goodbye in person. Our safe departure is enough to show we haven't let him down. Yes, the voice faded into the air. I received a signing notification from the site. As a newbie, I'm very excited. After correcting my signing status, I'll resume 2 updates a day. I'm taking a day off tomorrow to go to the cemetery for some inspiration. Adhering to a responsible writing attitude, I've decided to find an opportunity to capture a wild hollow for careful observation and research. If I don't return, please burn some paper money for me, thank you. Chapter 7 The White Zetsu Who Went to the Wrong Set. The clock has been turned back half an hour. In the cold, damp, and dark depths of the earth, a strange white creature moves rapidly, like a mayfly drifting in the deep sea. Slowly, it reveals a pale face and a pure white body. Completely naked, without pores, the jagged lines of its muscles make it look as if it were pieced together from paper and plaster, exuding an indescribable eeriness. Human-like, yet not human? My name is White Zetsu, an ordinary white Zetsu. Like countless twins, no one can tell us apart except for our unique black skin. We've all become pathetically uniform, which has always troubled me greatly. I am White Zetsu, and I like to think. Following the chronological order, I gave myself the number 404 to highlight my uniqueness. Like many other white-skinned people, we are all ruled by the same black-skinned person. A group of white-skinned people being ruled by one black-skinned person, I always felt something was wrong, but I couldn't find the reason. So, until then, I had to endure the exploitation and oppression of the black-skinned person. I'm White Zetsu number 404, a 007 worker. My mission is to monitor Kirigakure, confirm that the 4th Mizukage, Yagura Karadachi, is still under Jinjutsu manipulation, strictly enforce the policies of the Blood Mist Village, and discover any hidden dangers or anomalies in the village as early as possible. It's incredibly boring. A village constantly killing its own people is nothing new, everything seems to be scripted by some behind-the-scenes mastermind. White Zetsu 404's experience was like watching a movie with spoilers, a complete waste of time. For a White Zetsu, this was cruelly infuriating. Sigh, another boring day. No wonder I always feel a chill down there, it's because I don't have one. Does Black Zetsu have one? Would he be willing to show me? White Zetsu 404 pondered seriously. He emerged from the darkness of the underground into the pitch-black night, then glanced suspiciously at a cylindrical building 100 meters away. Most of the buildings in Kirigakure were these aesthetically unappealing cylindrical structures. They didn't seem particularly special. But, they were unusually dark. The building itself was a somber gray, shrouded in night. Even though it appeared identical to White Zetsu, that building seemed even darker, as if more melanin had gathered in the darkness. More accurately, it was swallowed by a whale and entered through a window on a mid-floor of the building. Something's wrong. For some reason, White Zetsu is particularly sensitive to black. Number 404 could distinguish color differences within the same shade of black, and he was certain that the black reflected in the building was not the same color as the darkness of the night. No normal person would climb stairs, jumping through a window was more in line with the style of this world. A crack appeared in the corner of the wall, and a pitcher plant stubbornly emerged from the crack, growing and spreading out like a living thing, revealing White Zetsu's head. Number 404 never used doors or windows, so White Zetsu naturally assumed that he was essentially a mayfly disguised as a human. The smell of blood. A familiar scent filled the room. White Zetsu, leaning out halfway, sniffed. The smell was relatively fresh, mixed with a hint of decaying flesh, indicating that there was a fairly recent dead body in the room. A corpse that died in the house? Finding a recently deceased corpse in the blood mist is nothing to be surprised about, it's a basic daily occurrence. Although the corpse lying on the bed was in a horrific state, its chest sunken, its heart shriveled, as if the flesh inside had been hollowed out, leaving only an empty shell, its facial muscles stiff and contorted, its dead fish eyes bulging as if about to fall out of their sockets, all indicated that the deceased had endured extreme fear before death. Blood mist ninjas should be numb to death by now, they shouldn't be showing such a terrified expression. The temperature in the room was far colder than outside, and the air inhaled was mixed with unknown pheromones, as if besides himself and the dead man, there were other unknown entities emitting their scents in the room. There's something on the bed. White Zetsu stared intently at the corpse on the bed, or more precisely, at the air above it. The pitch black, transparent air was tinged with an empty, black outline. Wait, Why is the heir outlined in this particular area? White Zetsu's eyes widened in shock. It wasn't just pitch black air, it was a blurry shadow clinging to the corpse. No, it wasn't just the corpse. The entire room, the furniture, walls, ceiling, even the corner he just crawled out of, was covered in a thin layer of darkness. Because of its thin density, it's imperceptible to the naked eye, and because of its massive size, it seems to blend into the surrounding darkness. And I'm right here in this cramped room with it, my body intimately pressed against my sky. White Zetsu's scalp tingled. The surrounding air instantly thickened, and he felt a cold, damp sensation flowing over his skin. He swallowed hard. He swore on his long life that this shadowy figure couldn't possibly be part of the Blood Mist Village script. An unprecedented sense of unease washed over him. White Zetsu had never imagined his mundane daily life would be shattered by such a terrifying and bizarre turn of events. His limited mental capacity couldn't describe the tremor in his heart. Had the Naruto channel stumbled into a horror movie? A major broadcasting blunder? The shadows writhed and coalesced, the darkness of the night seemingly drawn in by some force, converging and settling into the shadows. Along with the darkness, a chilling energy was being absorbed, further eroding the soul of the void hollow and shaping a matching shell for it. This energy originated from the composition of its respective world. The energy components of different worlds are rarely identical, resulting in subtle differences in the final synthesized hollows. In the world of Bleach, the existence of hollows can be simply categorized as a combination of an empty soul and spiritual particles. Soul, empty, plus energy, spiritual particles, equals hollow. In the world of Naruto, the existence of hollows can also be simply compared to distorted soul plus chakra. Soul, distorted, plus energy, chakra, equals hollow. Hollow, equals hollow. A medical paper should provide a detailed explanation here, while Gin Ichimaru, as the primary creator and researcher, still needs to gather data for rigorous verification and deduction. Zetsu, 404, is fortunate enough to be recognized as the first witness of this world. Even if he himself knew nothing about it. The shadowy outline was like a drawn black border, the thick ink seeping out with a cold, evil chill. From nothingness to reality, a pair of terrifying eyes emerged from the darkness, accompanied by a teeth-grinding crackling sound. Around the eyes, a pale, faceless figure quickly appeared, followed by a body condensed with darkness and chakra, huge, bloated, and deformed, filling the entire room and still pushing outwards. You couldn't even be sure what was pushing in. It was probably unimaginable as flesh and blood. And as the saying goes, appearance reflects the heart. White Zetsu didn't believe that the inhuman face before him could communicate normally. A sinister, evil, deformed, and bizarre entity, this inevitably reminded one of some endangered species in the ninja world. White Zetsu was dumbfounded. Could this be the illegitimate offspring secretly born by some tailed beast? But Black Zetsu had never heard of tailed beasts giving birth. No matter how knowledgeable Baiju was, he could never have imagined that he was witnessing the birth of history. In the biography of a certain important figure in later generations, who wished to remain anonymous, this day was clearly defined as the anniversary of the ninja world's encounter with an alien species invasion. Furthermore, this wasn't the first time. Your brain cells are splitting open, Baiju stammered, unable to utter a single word before his chest was crushed as a dark, menacing tentacle reached for his head. The contract has been sent out, and it's expected to be officially signed in a couple of days. 2 chapters a day then. This newbie is so excited, hey, asking for recommendations and investment. Investment has to be free, HMPH, I resolutely oppose monetary investment, HMPH HMPH HMPH. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Shoot him, Divine Sniper. Thick black tentacles reached for White Zetsu like tearing off a radish. In that instant, despite the inability to communicate verbally, White Zetsu intuitively understood the monster's message. It just wanted to eat him. Such a simple desire. Splat. The pitcher plant above his head was uprooted and crushed, and a chill ran down his scalp as a tuft of hair flew away. White Zetsu, as was his habit, mentally cursed Black Zetsu's mother before his body turned into a puddle of white floating matter and sank into the ground to disappear. The true Voldemort, White Zetsu, disdained to confront his enemy head-on. Boom. Bang. Wall plaster crumbled and shattered, holes were smashed into the ground and walls, and debris fell from the sky. The enormous sound, from nothingness to reality, shattered the silent night. A house-sized, ugly head squeezed out of the hole, and a hideous, white-masked face looked down, seeing a bunch of two-legged prey running towards it. Those were the startled ninja from the hidden mist village. Compared to them, they looked like tiny fleas leaping from all sides of the street towards the terrifying monster. "What is that?" a nameless ninja cried out in horror, wearing an animal-patterned mask, looking up at the masked monster above him. Their eyes met, and silence and roars filled the monotonous night with horror and resentment. The drumbeat of falling debris resounded, and the monster roared as it squeezed out of a hole in the wall, its limbs smashing through the building, ferociously climbing down the tower. Over 5 meters long, its bloated and grotesque body was a species that would never be recognized in any animal encyclopedia. Its terrifying shape and massive body, set against a backdrop of the tower riddled with holes, created a visual impact that words could not describe. Attack. No one was foolish enough to believe the monster before them was there to spread goodwill. Without even a unified command, the nearest ninjas' hearts pounded, their bodies instinctively reacting, unleashing a barrage of dazzling ninjutsu. One tentacle was severed by a swirling current, another engulfed in raging flames, and the hollow, its body riddled with kunai that transformed into thorns, instantly felt the ninja world's collective humiliation. What kind of martial ethics is this? Dead? In the brief pause of the ninjutsu baptism, a severed tentacle suddenly sprang up from the ground, grabbing a nearby ninja and instantly tearing them apart like paper, turning them into a rain of blood. Another tentacle, charred black, eerily emitted a chilling aura. Its charred shell peeled away, and with a swift swing, the shell transformed into a deluge of bullets, raining down on the ninjas. Caught off guard, some ninjas were instantly pierced, exploding like tofu. Looking back at the two tentacles, they resembled geckos clinging to their severed limbs, shamelessly crawling back to their broken ends and reconnecting in a few breaths. Now, they were idly pulling out a kunai from their bodies. While pulling, they were also firing out at a much faster speed than before, creating a series of sonic booms that pierced the air, turning the ground into a sieve. Wood fragments used in the substitution jutsu rained down from the sky, filling the craters with shattered wood. This monster can regenerate limbs, and its wounds have healed. What's going on? And it's not bleeding. Is this monster not made of flesh and blood? The Anbu ninjas exchanged bewildered glances, their minds filled with questions, their expressions turning grave. The only saving grace was that, although they didn't yet understand the monster's nature, at least there was only one. Hidden underground, with only his bald head peeking out, White Zetsu secretly observed. His thoughts were even more advanced. He was already planning how to cut fragments from the monster's corpse and seal them away when cleaning up the battlefield, so he could take them back for Black Zetsu to study. The lone hollow was underestimated. Boom. 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 8 consecutive cannon shots echoed through the blood mist, signaling the imminent arrival of other hollow companions. The Anbu ninjas' facial muscles froze beneath their masks, looking around in disbelief. Where the sounds echoed from all directions, black smoke billowed, but instead, roared uniquely shaped, enormous monsters. Were they responding to the loneliness of this place? White Zetsu's mouth gaped open. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9 of these monsters in total? What the hell? Not some illegitimate offspring of a tailed beast, but a whole litter? It was incredibly perplexing. Thinking made his head feel like it was smoking. White Zetsu felt his brain overheat. He wasn't suited for this kind of brain-burning thinking, so he quickly stopped his chaotic associations, letting his malfunctioning brain catch its breath. The battlefield entered its second phase. Smoke billowed as the enormous monster displayed bulldozing destructive power, buildings collapsing one after another, the ground trembling and echoing throughout the blood mist village. Ninjas, both overt and covert, rushed to the battlefield, and naturally, the number of guards at the village entrances dwindled rapidly. Our homes have been raided, who's going to guard the towers? My friends worked really hard so we could leave safely. A farewell breeze lifted the hem of a Shinigami's uniform, rippling the darkness. A tall and a short figure emerged from a hidden corner. The masked, shorter man spoke to the squinting, taller man, his voice filled with emotion. Gin Ichimaru picked at his ear. Once we leave, they should be able to evacuate safely too, right? Kaguya Nami, a sentimental person, stared at Jin, hoping for a positive answer. That's probably difficult. The reason the hollows can cause such a commotion is mainly because the ninjas lack direct means of countering them. But ultimately, it's just a lack of information that caught them off guard. After all, they're just a few ordinary hollows, and ninjas aren't weak ordinary people. Gin Ichimaru, having roughly figured out Nami's performing tendencies, added in a cooperative tone, being killed or sealed is a foreseeable fate, but being able to sacrifice oneself for Nami will be the most valuable life journey in the history of hollows. Captain Gin Ichimaru is such an honest person, so trustworthy. Kaguya Nami stopped, her index finger gently stroking her mask. Her gaze swept over the ninja guards at the entrance, and she said softly, "I guess they won't let us leave so easily." The scabbard parted slightly, and an unparalleled blade pierced through space in an instant. A blinding white light pierced the throat, and spurting blood stained the surface, like a marigold suddenly blooming, its desperate whisper echoing in the ear. "I'm sure they'll agree to let us leave, Chairman Nami." Gin Ichimaru lightly flicked the bloodstains off his blade. The short, exquisite knife seemed harmless, completely incompatible with the ruthless blade that had just flashed out hundreds of meters away, slicing a life in its wake. The corpse fell heavily to the ground, belatedly offering its tacit agreement. Chapter 9 Gotei 13, 3rd Division, Captain Gin Ichimaru. The ninja whose throat had been pierced only then belatedly responded. The color in his eyes vanished, a hissing sound escaped his mouth, and his body fell straight backward, his face eerily serene as he lay face up. He hadn't even realized he was dead yet. Splattered blood landed on the faces of several nearby ninjas, the blood's temperature chillingly hot. Dead? Are you kidding me? What just happened? Gulp! The sounds of swallowing and Adam's apple bobbing rang out simultaneously. A dozen pairs of eyes were fixed on the figure hundreds of meters away, not daring to blink for fear of a repeat of the hallucination. Did that sword extend? Hundreds of meters? How is that possible? It must be an illusion. But Hayes is really dead. His throat was pierced by the blade. How could this be an illusion? The dozen or so ninjas guarding the entrance exchanged bewildered glances. They should have gone back to the village to provide support instead of staying at the entrance to fulfill their duties. Otherwise, they wouldn't have encountered such an inexplicable attack. Who are you people? The Jonin Fujitoya Shiro, guarding the village entrance, looked grave. He didn't even bother to wipe the bloodstain splattered on his face, afraid that a moment's distraction would result in his death. That sword was very strange. A sword that could extend hundreds of meters was unheard of. What was even more terrifying was its speed, as fast as lightning, arriving almost in the blink of an eye. Can I answer him? It had been a long time since the divine spear had tasted blood. Smelling the cold blade flowing with hot blood, Gin Ichimaru's face showed a rare look of intoxication. He turned to Chairman Nami for permission. Aspiring to be a mastermind should always conceal one's identity, right? But a monotonous script doesn't suit the director's aesthetic. Besides, I'm wearing a mask. Only universally hated villains need to hide their identities, but aren't we the righteous ones? Captain Ichimaru Jin, I think you just need to follow your heart when answering this question. Kaguya Nami replied earnestly. Always repeatedly emphasizing our own righteousness and the portrayal of good people, it seems this is some kind of obsession of Chairman Nami. Ichimaru Jin suppressed his urge to complain. In his long life, he had encountered all sorts of people, but only the man who manipulated the Soul Society with such consistent pretense, even to the point of hypnotizing himself, had ever displayed such a performance. And now, Ichimaru Jin suspected that he was about to meet a second man with the same qualities in his lifetime. Aizen Sasuke manipulates and deceives the entire Soul Society with lies. Is Kaguya Nami planning to similarly toy with the entire ninja world? How far will she go? Why am I always forced to follow these kinds of people? Is this fate? Then, what role will I play this time? I am Gin Ichimaru, captain of the 3rd Division of the Gotei 13. Gin Ichimaru's lips were pressed into a thin line, his narrowed eyes gleaming eerily. Short, choppy purple hair partially obscured his face, and his black and white Chihaka uniform fluttered without wind. He extended one hand from his sleeve, holding his sword horizontally, a signature smile on his face, and said softly, "Please make way, for your own safety." The Gotei 13? A strange title. Never heard of it before. Is it some obscure little organization? Unfamiliar clothing, a strange sword, and that short, masked man seems to be the leader of the two. Damn it, just two people, where do they get the audacity to spout such nonsense? Just that sword? Arrogant. Fujito Yoshiro tried to extract more information from the enemy while simultaneously stalling for time. Hidden behind his back, he secretly gestured to the other ninjas, issuing a series of combat orders. Formation number 6, 3-person groups, obstructing vision, running in a zigzag pattern to close the distance, close combat, prioritizing the sword wielder, disarming them, life or death. Purpose? Ichimaru Jin glanced at Kaguya Nami out of the corner of his eye, smiling. There's no such thing. If you have to say, perhaps it's just that fate has chosen to start anew here. One last piece of advice, dying in the prelude to the story's unfolding is utterly pointless. Attack! Fujito Yoshiro shouted. All the ninjas scattered simultaneously, running erratically towards the enemy hundreds of meters away. Their hands formed hand seals as a thick fog enveloped the area, swallowing up their running figures and their voices. The basic skills of the hidden mist ninja, hidden mist technique plus silent killing technique. The killing intent lurked within the impenetrable fog, chilling and bone chilling from all directions, as if intent on devouring the two at the center. From beginning to end, Ichimaru Jin remained motionless, standing like a statue. Then, he murmured a long-forgotten release phrase, "Shoot him, divine spear." A flash of white light disappeared, a streak of blood piercing through the air like a whip. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground echoed continuously through the fog, originating from Ichimaru Jin. He simply held his short sword level, casually adjusting the angle, quietly listening to the bloodthirsty breath of the divine spear. Swoosh! Sizzle! 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 Flesh and blood pierced through, blood splattering, souls annihilated, leaving only a single note in the world, repeating monotonously in the smog, sending chills down the spines of the living. But this horror was fleeting, and then the curtain fell. The only things that remained unchanged were Kaguya Nami's indifferent mask and Gin Ichimaru's unmoved steps. As the fog dissipated, the corpses lying in a circle were all within a 50-meter radius. This was Gin Ichimaru's mercy. He allowed these foolish bodies to die together. Too far, and they wouldn't feel the whisper of death. Too close, and the blood would splatter on their shoes. Cough cough. Blood mixed with flesh dregs coughed up from his throat. Fujito Yoshiro, who had initiated the charge, still had a breath left. This was definitely intentional on Gin Ichimaru's part. This narrow-eyed man's mind was no bigger than a pinhole. "Why can you see me?" A fist-sized hole pierced his chest, shattered internal organs gushing out. Fujito Yoshiro lay on the ground, using his last strength to lift his head, his face contorted with resentment as he asked. Hidden mist technique plus silent killing technique. Fujito Yoshiro even used water clone technique within the smog, so many layers of protection, yet none of them disrupted the enemy's vision. The sword remained unaffected, killing with unerring precision throughout. Hiding, zigzagging, or using clone techniques, all were ineffective. If even one foot touched the edge of the 50-meter radius, the enemy would be instantly shot dead. He even managed to neatly arrange all the corpses within a 50-meter radius. Was this intentional? Was it to satisfy some kind of twisted pleasure? The captain of the 3rd Division of the Gotei 13, Gin Ichimaru, is a terrifying monster. Looks like my eyesight is excellent. His eyes slit open and closed, revealing pale blue pupils like clear, shallow streams, indifferently reflecting Fujito Yoshiro's, zenning, ferocious hideous, face. This man would never hear the truth from Ichimaru Jin's mouth again. Trying to use smog to obscure the Grim Reaper's vision, what a brilliant idea. Monster. Fujito Yoshiro gritted his teeth. Wrong, it's the Grim Reaper. Ichimaru Jin said softly. This guy is wicked. I'm about to die, and he's still trying to deceive me with the name of the Grim Reaper. Fujito Yoshiro's last thoughts surfaced in his soul, and he spat out his final words through gritted teeth. You're lying, before instantly dying, his soul dissipating. Gin Ichimaru silently protested in his heart, it's rare for me to tell the truth, and no one believes me. Kaguya saw a strange expression on his face, and at the same time received a notification in her mind. You have achieved the achievement. The newbie has achieved the achievement, signed, and is asking for monthly tickets and rewards from the handsome guys who have traveled through countless universes, mastered all truths, and are currently watching. Thank you for the 6,500 reward from Lang Nguyen 1. Starting today, there will be 2 updates a day. Chapter 10 Death's Greeting. This is a historically documented event. The Gotei 13 has revealed its presence in the ninja world for the first time. This is the first official greeting from the Seireitei to the ninja world, which is of historical significance. You have achieved the achievement, the greeting of the Shinigami. You have gained 1000 achievement points. You have initiated an important historical process, the glory of the Seireitei. You need to fill in the missing fragments of the Shinigami in the new world, popularize and spread the history of the Seireitei, and let the ancient Seireitei be revived, regaining the power and glory of death. The current progress list is as follows. 1. The Shinigami's debut, achieved. 2. The gathering of the Gotei 13, 1/13, 3. Strongholds occupied in the modern world, 0, 4. Projection of landmark buildings, 0, 5. Historical proof, none. A long list of drop-down menus appeared in front of the retina, like the task list of a low-quality single-player game. There were only simple text titles, but they were densely arranged in a long string. The scroll bar on the right could scroll down more than 10 meters. At the bottom was a rather irresponsible note, P.S. Current total progress 1%, not yet at the settlement threshold, an unexpected windfall. Is it because Gin Ichimaru introduced himself that he gained the achievement and started the historical process? Interesting. I feel like this cheat mechanism is hinting at something. Spreading the glory of the Seireitei, in layman's terms, means being high profile and flamboyant and causing trouble. I get it. Kaguya Nami blinked, her mental calculations clicking. Besides, that Shinigami debut clearly referred to Gin Ichimaru, so it's also on my head. All the achievements created by the workers belong to the company boss, right? Very reasonable. The workers show off in public, realizing their self-worth. The boss manages the finances behind the scenes. Perfect. Praise to the great HR, cheat. Gin Ichimaru wiped the blood from his sword, turning to meet a burning gaze. Kaguya Nami's eyes were practically overflowing with joy and love, giving the impression of overly exaggerated and clumsy acting. Jin's gluteal muscles inexplicably tensed, and a chill ran down his spine. Is something wrong? Gin asked cautiously. No, you did a fantastic job. I'm very satisfied. Kaguya Nami used two varies to express her full approval of Gin. Gin avoided Kaguya Nami's eyes, giving a dry laugh. It's a pity we're so pressed for time, otherwise, I would have recited prayers for these souls returning to their final rest. Kaguya Nami suppressed the love in her eyes, indicating that she wasn't just doing this for free, she was willing to put in the effort. Reciting prayers for the dead is a kind and sacred ritual that allows the souls of the deceased to rest in peace. It's also part of the noble work of the Grim Reaper, and these solid basic principles are included in the beginner's package of Slaying Fist and Walking Ghost. A slight hum emanated from the Zanpakuto. Shinshao, seemingly unconvinced, sent a private voice message to Ichimaru Jin's consciousness. He's looking down on me. Those shot by Shinshao could never hear the prayer, their souls have been scattered. Sigh, don't rip off someone's mask of hypocrisy, the consequences could be unbearable. Ichimaru Jin responded lightly to himself. He'd seen too many people who didn't understand the weight of those words die tragically. How do you know that lies aren't the greatest act of mercy some people show the world? Shinshao remained silent. The road out of the village has been cleared. You can leave now, Chairman Nami, Ichimaru Jin said. Kaguya Nami glanced at the chaotic blood-mist village under the night sky. She'd lived here for 3 years, and while she hadn't felt anything before, the thought of leaving suddenly stirred up a melancholy mood. Humans are so sentimental. I forgot to collect the Shikatsu Myaku clan's inheritance and land deeds, she thought. I can generously let go of the hatred for the annihilation of my clan and the grudge of those killed, but I can't bear to abandon those friends on the list who yearn for purification. And then there's Sora, that woman. I gave her the opportunity that originally belonged to her to someone else. She'll definitely resent me. Forget it, she thought. Let bygones be bygones, let it all vanish like smoke. Damn it. I'll be back. Kaguya Nami listened to the farewell sounds echoing in the air. The hollows' roars weren't as loud as before. It seemed the first batch of hollows were about to complete their historical mission. Sigh, Kaguya Nami suppressed her sorrow, carefully stepping over the corpses to avoid soiling her shoes with blood, and followed Ichimaru Jin out of the village. You have achieved the achievement, defecting from Kirigakure. Even as a Grim Reaper, one must not forget one's roots. Although no one knows, tracing back to your origins, this armed prosthetic body comes from the corpse pulse of Kirigakure. You use this identity to complete a defection, earning 500 achievement points. You have activated a hidden event. I speak for defection. 1-5. I speak for defection. I always join new organizations with good intentions. At first, we got along very well, but things gradually changed. I found a more noble organization, and they finally stopped trusting me. I had no choice but to leave alone. P.S. The same prosthetic body must be used to complete the event. Each time it is completed, the event reward is increased by 5 times compared to the previous one. As her shoes left the soil of Kaguya, and the air of freedom filled her nostrils, a notification flashed through Kaguya Nami's mind. She had accidentally become a brand ambassador. The initial fee was low, but the potential for growth was considerable. She felt her steps become lighter, and she began to anticipate a bright future. Current achievement points: 1,687. 10% off promotion countdown. 66 h 47 minutes. A huge, ugly head was cleaved in two, the pale mask splitting in half and falling off, revealing half a human face. The face was swollen and rotting, its surface covered in white lumps, looking as if it had been devoured by countless white maggots, no longer recognizable as human. But the shapes of the eyes, nose, and mouth were clearly magnified, a rotting human face. The face screamed madly, but the Kaguya ninja on the battlefield were suddenly put on pause, falling into deathly silence. Those monsters' masks seem to have human faces underneath. How is that possible? That face looks like Nagafujikazuya's. An uncertain muttering seemed to be amplified in everyone's ears, followed by more horrified voices. The answer gradually became consistent, the original identity of Hollow One was confirmed, and a chilling fear silently infected everyone. A monster hiding a human face might just be a misunderstanding. So let's peel back the mask of another monster and see. Crack! A spinning greatsword pierced through the monster's head. Zabuza stepped on the monster's head, wielding the sword to slice off the entire mask, revealing a rotting human face covered in countless white threads. The huge eyeballs, staring at each other, were filled with hatred and resentment. Even Zabuza, known as the demon, felt his steely heart twitch twice as he stood above that face and those eyes. Hell, it really is a human face. A hoarse, mocking voice came from the side. Kisame Hoshigaki grinned, wielding a large, bandaged sword in one hand, and savagely smashed the monster's mask. The bandages on the sword burst open, revealing sharp, jagged teeth on the blade. He bit off half of the monster's face and crunched on it. Samehoya told me this monster tastes delicious. Although it hides a human face, 90% of its body is chakra. It's very tasty. Kisame Hoshigaki licked his lips. On the ground, a small, thin figure slowly walked over. A baby-faced man's expression was filled with a sinister coldness. The fourth Mizukage, Yagura Karadachi, coldly swept his gaze over the unknown monster, his eyes devoid of any emotion. His muttered words echoed across the battlefield. Monster? Human? No difference. They all die, newbie asking for monthly votes. Chapter 11. Who is he? The rotting, twisted face writhed with fleshy growths, white pus desperately clinging to the shattered mask, slowly pulling and coalescing back onto the face. Suddenly, the moisture in the mist condensed into a mirror, perfectly reflected before Hollow. Have you ever looked in a mirror? Have you ever seen your own face? A chilling voice entered Hollow's ears. Yagura raised his hand, conjuring a water mirror technique. Unexpectedly, the mirror first reflected a normal human form, then the bones and muscles on the human form's surface detached, and fine black smoke emerged from within, swelling and enveloping into the monstrous form it was now. Was this, in a daze, a reflection of Hollow's formation? Water release, water mirror technique was a secret technique that Yagura had developed by chance, capable of perfectly replicating the image of the person it reflected. The image possessed completely equal strength, but perhaps even he himself had never deeply considered whether the water mirror reflected and replicated a mere shell or a more mysterious soul. Besides, Yagura's mind might not even be entirely his own right now, so how could he have time to study such trivial matters? Did you think that by turning into this monstrous form, you could rebel against my rule? Yagura muttered to himself, his bloodshot, crimson pupils filled with dark purple veins. Behind him, a phantom 100 times larger and more terrifying than a Hollow seemed to flicker. He glanced around, and all the Kaguya ninjas instinctively lowered their heads to avoid his gaze. Why do you dare to look me in the eye? Yagura withdrew his gaze, meeting the Hollow's hideous, enormous eyes, his long staff hooked into one of those eyes. The Hollow roared, its tentacles thrashing wildly at Yagura. In the water mirror, the Hollow also roared, its bloated body squeezing out of the mirror, its identical tentacles reaching for it. Two hollows were locked in a fierce struggle, tearing at each other, large chunks of black flesh scattering across the ground. Caught in a tangle, it was impossible to distinguish which was real and which was not. Perhaps the infighting was too brutal, the fragmented bodies were impossible to piece back together, and ultimately, they all dissipated into black smoke and mist. Dead. That's more like it. Ninjutsu is essentially the manipulation of energy, and powerful ninjas are adept at manipulating it. In this world, even tailed beasts can be killed by ninjutsu, let alone a batch of hollows created so casually. It was basically as Gin Ichimaru had predicted. Ordinary hollows, relying on their unknown attributes and somewhat strange vitality, could bully the lower-ranking ninjas who served as the base, but against the elite ninja class, being killed or sealed was simply a matter of time. Not to mention the overwhelming power of a cage-level ninja, their strangeness was no different from acrobatics, and they would crumble at the first touch. Of course, Gin Ichimaru never had any expectations for the Hollow's combat strength. He was content with simply causing chaos and attracting attention. After all, it was the Hollow's first appearance, and their enormous, ferocious forms were quite intimidating. Death is the destiny of the Blood Mist Village. A strange flush appeared on Yagura's face. These words seemed like a promise to the Blood Mist Village, or perhaps a vow to himself. His voice was soft, but Zabuza, out of the corner of his eye, read Yagura's lips. His knuckles turned slightly white as he swung his executioner's blade down repeatedly, like a tireless machine dismembering the hollows beneath his feet. Beside him, Kisame Hoshigaki wasn't surprised by Yagura's actions. He expressionlessly chewed and swallowed a hollow with his Samehoda sword. The chakra from the dismemberment and digestion was fed back into his body through Samehoda. Although it was far inferior to the tailed beasts in density and size, the chakra had a similar cold, evil quality. It looks like a low-grade version of the tailed beasts. 9 of them appeared at once, clearly not naturally born. Were they artificially created? As a benchmark of the ninja profession, Kisame Hoshigaki naturally wouldn't think about things in the direction of superstition. In his worldview, all strange and unusual questions would eventually be answered by ninjutsu. This time would be no exception. Moreover, the scene in the water mirror technique just now is quite intriguing. Is someone developing forbidden techniques using human bodies, transforming into tailed beasts? So, is this a preliminary result? Who did it? Is there such a talent hidden in Kirigakure? Kisame Hoshigaki's mind raced. The number of 9, and the distance between the positions, are all different. Were they deliberately released to test the results? Then, this person is likely hiding here, secretly observing and recording their masterpiece. Who could it be? Kisame Hoshigaki's eyes lit up, his shark-like eyes silently scanning the battlefield, trying to find someone suspicious. The remaining hollows were dying one after another, their bodies melting into wisps of black smoke that dissipated into the air. 2 hollows miraculously survived, instead being sealed inside a gray porcelain jar covered in cursed seals. No one seemed suspicious. If anyone was, the sealing team's ninjas were more likely to be doubted, or perhaps they weren't among those present, but hidden further away, in more concealed locations. Kisame suddenly realized that someone who had been there just moments before had vanished. The one-eyed man who always wore a black eye patch was gone. And hidden beneath that eye patch was a white eye that couldn't withstand the light. The Byakugan, the ninja world's version of a visual radar, with a range of 1 kilometer, capable of broadcasting even a fly's mating process in 4K. Tell me, wouldn't you like to have one? Village entrance exit. Ao removed his black eye patch, revealing a single, cataract-covered eye. His expression grim as he scanned the neatly arranged corpses on the ground. Although their deaths were varied and haphazard, if a semicircle were drawn with a certain point as the origin, the corpses would all be shockingly neatly arranged along that arc. It was as if someone had deliberately arranged the bodies after their deaths. There are no signs of dragging or moving the bodies, so, Ao hissed, they weren't arranged after death. This semicircle is where they last landed before they died, like a boundary measured by the Grim Reaper. Crossing the line meant instant death. A neat arc? Is it due to obsessive-compulsive disorder, or to create some kind of ritual? Ao crouched down to examine the corpses. The fatal wounds were remarkably consistent, all had been pierced through the throat or heart by a sharp blade, no more, no less, a simple, single, and utterly indiscriminate killing. It was horrifyingly indiscriminate. Keep in mind, these corpses weren't just Shunin, they also included a Jonin who had led the team. They barely had time to resist, not even to send out a distress signal, before they were all wiped out. Even in the entire village, only a handful of people could pull off something like that. Qing looked towards the village entrance, a winding, dark path stretching into the night like the predatory throat of a venomous snake, waiting for its lost prey to wander in. The monster that appeared in the village, the bloodshed at the village entrance, these two events happened almost simultaneously, like a seamless performance. Was someone orchestrating this all for an escape? The veins around his eyes bulged menacingly, and his pale eyes reflected the shadows of trees. Beneath the ancient, dark robes were two figures of different heights. One squinted, glancing back as if sensing something, a captivating smile playing on his lips. The other wore a pale, eerie mask, his calm eyes unfathomably deep. That mask, it was the same material as the monster's mask. Newbie asking for monthly votes. If you don't vote, and I don't vote, when will the author ever get their chance? Crying. Chapter 12 felt insulted. The night wind in the forest was damp, cold, and biting, filling the nostrils with smog particles whose PM levels were off the charts. A faint, almost imperceptible, smell of blood mingled with the scent of decay, a testament to the countless skeletons buried beneath its surface. Each step on the soft earth could easily snag a tangled ball of roots, dragging away chunks of rotting flesh, startling flies that mercilessly flew away, leaving only the roots of the plants clinging tightly to the remains. Look, Gin Ichimaru muttered with disgust, stomping the bones and flowers together until they were reduced to pulp. The first thing a rotting corpse attracts are flies and maggots, but in the end, it's the beautiful flowers that stay by its side. Should those flowers be seen as beautiful or ugly? He had a mild case of mysophobia. The fat, greasy maggots are disgusted by the world for merely eating the rotting matter of corpses, while the seemingly innocent and delicate flowers have long since secretly absorbed the essence of life, yet are praised and cherished by the world. In the end, who can blame the flowers? It's just that most people have never opened their eyes to see the world clearly. Discussing painful literature with actresses is a basic skill for directors, and Kaguya Nami picked up on Ichimaru Jin's words almost without thinking. To him, this seemingly profound and melancholic literary style was actually just a manipulative rhetoric of a pervert. He could spout it off almost instinctively. The atmosphere suddenly became strange. Ichimaru Jin paused, his smile stiffening for a moment, before casually bending down to break off a flower. With a flick of his finger, the petals immediately bloomed and fell, drifting into the silent night. The petals are drifting over. Hiding behind a tree, Qing was startled to see petals drifting from the darkness. The delicate petals, arranged in a cluster, seemed to be controlled by an invisible hand, bypassing the trees and foliage, and rapidly drifting towards his location. This is a headwind. Would you like it if I buried your body with these petals? A gentle whisper unexpectedly entered his ears. Qing looked up in shock. A black robe appeared atop the shadows and branches, its hem fluttering. A slender figure leaned forward slightly, his narrow, squinting eyes looking down at him. He'd been discovered. Even following him from 300 meters away, he'd been exposed. My huge white eye didn't even see it? Is this white eye blind? The veins around Qing's eyes bulged, his glaring eyes filled with disbelief. 300 meters away, only a masked figure remained in his field of vision. The other figure had indeed vanished. Yes, he was currently standing above him, waving hello. Ao shuddered, leaping backward and simultaneously forming hand seals to create two water clones, one on the left and one on the right, rushing towards the figure above with overwhelming force. The water clones leaped high from the tree trunks, one spewing several water arrows from its mouth, aimed directly at Ichimaru Jin's head, chest, and limbs. The other spun 360 degrees in midair, its stinking shoe sole slashing towards Ichimaru Jin's nose. Ichimaru Jin's nose twitched, his narrowed eyes flashing with a chilling light, his gaze seemingly penetrating the two water clones, locking onto the filthy, ugly soul within Ao's true body. In the eyes of a Shinigami, a body is nothing more than a cheap garment. Let alone a clumsy trick like a clone technique, utterly disregarded. His toes snapped off a branch, his form instantly vanishing, leaving only a lingering afterimage captured by the Byakugan. Like a live stream glitch, the scene before Ao's eyes became a slideshow, a problem Ao's Byakugan had never encountered before. Gone, just like before. No hand seals, no chakra flow. Just lifted a foot. Even the body flicker technique has chakra consumption and casting animation. What the hell is this lifting a foot? I can't bear to learn it at all. Ao stared wide-eyed, expanding his vision from a single point to a radius around his body. Then, he saw a series of blurry afterimages in the air. The afterimages were intermittent, like a series of fragmented slides, impossible to reconstruct into a complete dynamic picture. He could only piece together the image in his mind based on experience. If it weren't for the Byakugan's perception, I probably wouldn't even be able to catch these afterimages. The speed is terrifying, completely beyond the limits of normal vision. AO swallowed hard. All ninjas fear encountering speed-type ninjas the most. It's truly a one-turn game, like fighting against the Grim Reaper. You can feel the Grim Reaper's scythe slicing across your neck, but you can't see the Grim Reaper's shadow. Back in the day, Konoha's Yellow Flash pushed speed to its limits, his Flying Thunder God technique striking fear into the hearts of countless ninjas. If it were the Flying Thunder God technique, there wouldn't even be a trail of afterimages in the air. But, you can only catch fragmented afterimages. That's just the difference between complete and partial blindness. You still can't see the enemy's shadow. Blood vessels bulged around his eyes. Ao's heart sank to the bottom. There's no trace of chakra flow in the air. Is this the purest form of taijutsu? That's outrageous. The footprints on the ground were chaotic and sharp. Countless fragmented afterimages within his Byakugan surrounded him. His two water clones stood frozen on the outside, unsure how to rescue the real body, then turned and ran wildly into the distance. An opportunity. It lay with the other masked person. He couldn't be ridiculously strong too, could he? If he could be taken hostage, perhaps there would be a sliver of hope? Kaguya Nami, who was watching the show from the sidelines, paused for a moment, the muscles in her cheeks under the mask stiffening slightly. Was he being used as a lifeline? Although she admitted from the bottom of her heart that she was indeed the one who was dragging the team down, wasn't this blatant insult too much? I definitely can't be taken hostage. It's not that I think highly of myself, but Ichimaru-jin won't allow this to happen. So, I can actually do nothing. But Ichimaru-jin deliberately sent two water clones over. Is he trying to weigh me up, or is he just worried that I'll get bored watching the show and want to give me some amusement too? A cold smile curled at the corner of Kaguya Nami's lips. She was willing to believe in Ichimaru-jin's good intentions. She looked at the two water clones rushing towards her from 100 meters away, and quietly pressed her hands to the ground from her sleeves. Just dealing with two water clones, I can't let my performance be too low. Class A slender, pale hand plunged into the ground, her bare arm glowing eerily red. Blood gushed from her pores, seeping into the ground from her fingertips. Spreading outwards like a living thing, outlining a 60-meter diameter array centered on Kaguya Nami. An altar, like a blood-red ritual, rose from the earth, the air filled with an evil, chilling fragrance, as if some indescribable terror had been summoned by the altar, its slippery tongue licking at the living things in this area. The air was polluted into viscous blood, the soil reeking of blood, only the flowers within the altar remained ever more vibrant and holy. Blood sacrifice. A hoarse, low incantation echoed within the 60-meter diameter, accompanied by falling blood rain. Just then, the water clone, sprinting at 100 meters, burst in. Chapter 13. Do you think I'm a good person? Blood rained down, and sacrificial inscriptions echoed. The voice didn't originate from Kaguya Nami, but from the low murmur of the blood altar, as if some unseen living being was truly performing a ritual within the blood rain. Two water clones rushed straight into the area of the blood sacrifice. This blood rain looks scary, but it seems like nothing happened after we rushed in. Water clone A said with a sigh of relief. Yet. Water clone B nodded in agreement. Two water clones raced side by side, sprinting towards the center of the altar. Fearless and unstoppable, they charged forward until Kaguya Nami rose, brushed the blood and grime from her hands, and looked with her deep, dark eyes at the twins who had rushed to within a step of her. She smiled and said, "It's time." Just in time. The rain of blood suddenly froze in the air, droplets connecting to form blood threads, coalescing into countless crimson tentacles that wrapped around them. From the air, from the soil, even from the blood seeping into their own bodies, the fine tentacles, like needles and threads, sewn into their veins, sucking away blood. Glug. Glug. If the water clones had blood vessels, this sucking sound would be the pleasant sound of blood being drained. Unfortunately, the water clones had no blood vessels, so the sound was merely the noise of full liquid being drawn from their bodies. What happens when the water clones are drained of liquid? The two water clones stared at each other in horror, their own dissolving bodies reflected in each other's eyes, turning into murky liquid that seeped into the grooves of the altar, only to be spat out in disgust, merging with the mud on the ground. The blood sacrifice was over. Some of the rain of blood fell back onto the altar and dissipated, while some trickled into Kaguya Nami's artificial body, inadvertently staining her hoary crimson with blood, dripping down. The villainous special effects are off the charts. It doesn't suit my identity at all. Kaguya Nami smoothed her wet hair, wiping the blood stains from her mask. How could the mask representing justice and order be tainted by blood? She looked at Ichimaru with a cold gaze. Oh dear, the student council president seems to be getting impatient. Gin Ichimaru's attention was constantly half held on Kaguya Nami. Seeing the two water clones dissolve almost silently, the curve of his lips widened, and his narrowed eyes grew increasingly dark and inscrutable. Sorry, the game is over. The intermittent afterimages in the white pupils suddenly overlap into a terrifying smiling face. A venomous short blade instantly filled the pupil, moving so fast that Ao could only watch helplessly as the blade pierced her forehead, the cold touch sending a chill down her spine. I'm going to die. Wait. A detached voice pressed the pause button. The blade pierced the skin, drawing blood from a gaping wound on the forehead. The exposed flesh tore open, revealing a glaring crack in the skull. Gin Ichimaru sheathed his sword, turned to look at Kaguya Nami approaching from behind, and grinned, revealing clean, white teeth. Want to spare his life? He asked. I'm a magnanimous person. I won't take someone's life for the slightest offense. After all, the Gotei 13 haven't walked a mortal realm for a long time. I don't want the Seireitei to be misunderstood as an evil villainous organization. Even if people are foolish, they don't deserve to die. What do you think? Captain Gin Ichimaru? A strong stench of blood filled the air. Kaguya Nami stepped out of the darkness, her eyes, hidden behind her mask, casually sweeping over the stiff, pale face, her gaze lingering briefly on the translucent white eyeballs. Gin Ichimaru. Ao. Gin Ichimaru silently sheathed his sword. He glanced expressionlessly at Ao's stiff, surviving expression, and felt a deep pity for this man's tragic fate. At least Nami was right about one thing. The world is full of foolish people who don't realize that a clean and tidy death is also a great blessing. Not kill me? Who are you people? Blood streamed down Ao's forehead and brows, staining his eyes crimson and seemingly coating the mask in front of him with blood. Ao stared unblinkingly at Kaguya Nami, his mind blank. Seireitei? Gotei 13? Sounds like an evil villainous organization. Look, your eyes tell me you don't believe me. That's troublesome. Kaguya Nami scratched her head, a few drops of blood splashing from her hair onto Ao's lips. Ao subconsciously licked his lips. His intelligent mind allowed him to make the correct judgment. He pondered the other person's words, which seemed to unintentionally reveal that they belonged to some ancient and righteous organization. The reason they didn't kill me is to use me to pass this information back to the village? Ao didn't believe the other person would suddenly show kindness. He sneered inwardly, most likely some newly established, unknown organization, creating a seemingly plausible gimmick. Their real purpose is just to make a name for themselves in the ninja world. It's the same as some newly debuted bounty hunters who painstakingly fabricate brilliant resumes and give themselves intimidating titles. Recently, there's been a bounty hunter on the black market who calls himself unkillable, named Kikuzu, who boasts to everyone he meets that he once assassinated the first Hokage. Ao, experienced and knowledgeable, felt he had already seen through the other party's true intentions, but forced a smile and flattered, "No, of course I believe you are good people. As long as you let me leave, I promise to convey your goodwill to the village when I return." Tisk, a clever person. Kaguya Nami looked at Ao meaningfully, her gaze seemingly piercing the soul, sending chills down one's spine. She completely disregarded Ao's inner thoughts. As any director knows, a good plot requires interconnected events, layer upon layer, gradually unfolding the story's plot to the audience, rather than bursting into a climax from the start, as if trying to cram the entire story outline into the audience's brain. In reality, Kaguya Nami naturally played the role of the director of the script, the entire ninja world inevitably becoming her audience, and Ao was merely a button she casually planted at the beginning of the script. Whether the Seireitei was ancient or new was unimportant. Whether the 13 guardians of the Gotei 13 were righteous or evil was unimportant. The important thing is to leave a few loose ends, letting the audience unravel them and find the truth. Record it first, and once they've painstakingly uncovered the truth, they'll naturally believe it without a doubt. Don't be nervous, I can promise you, your story won't end today. Before that, I need you to honestly answer a few questions for me. Kaguya Nami was a master of the art of conversation. She knew that conveying information didn't necessarily require choosing to be the one stating or answering. That seemed too low class and easily aroused suspicion. Asking questions was much more subtle and pervasive, because the questions themselves implicitly clarified her stance and beliefs. Excuse me, why do the ninjas of Kirigakure exhibit terlofication? Is Kirigakure's policy of isolation intended to conceal some unspeakable secret? Chapter 14. Where has trust gone between people? Excuse me, why are the ninjas of Kirigakure becoming intangible? Is Kirigakure's policy of isolation to cover up some shady secrets? Kaguya Nami felt that her current expression was strikingly similar to that of a reporter at a large press conference in her past life, who righteously accused her of having improper dealings with actresses and colluding with theaters to falsify box office figures. Back then, that reporter was dignified and impeccably dressed, his tone and demeanor perfectly embodying justice, just like the sinister smile hidden behind Kaguya Nami's mask. At that time, she was completely bewildered, her face a purplish red, much like Ao's current blood-soaked face. Roles reversed, how satisfying. Ao's expression shifted from pale to astonished, then he exclaimed, "Hellofication? What do you mean? Didn't you create those monsters? But the mask on that monster's face is the same material and color as your mask." Kaguya Nami. This loophole is indeed hard for me to explain. Let me organize my thoughts. Kaguya Nami stared at Ao silently, considering whether she should just kill him. That's right, a mask doesn't prove anything. I was thinking too narrowly. Ao's face darkened, and he continued to press, if you didn't create them, why do you seem to know so much about the origins of these monsters? What does hellofication mean? Are you implying that these monsters were created by Kirigakure itself? Having learned about the many dark aspects of the ninja world, and recalling the bloody oppressive rule maintained in the village of Blood Mist, it was hard for Ao not to conjure up some chilling speculations. He showed just the right amount of hesitation and worry on his face, but only he knew how much of that expression was genuine and how much was an act. Kaguya Nami stroked her mask. Ichimaru Jin's eyes narrowed to slits. Looks like he knows nothing even if he survives, he's just wasting air. Ichimaru Jin reached for his sword hilt, a half-smile playing on his lips. It would be strange if he knew anything. Kaguya Nami inwardly applauded Ichimaru Jin's helpfulness. Seeing how scared he'd made others break out in a cold sweat, his tone darkened. I just saved your life, yet you won't even answer a few simple questions honestly. That's not the attitude one should have when repaying a debt of gratitude. Ao's throat went dry. Could this person not be lying? Did they truly suspect Kirigakure of harboring a secret? I'm not lying. Kirigakure's isolation isn't to cover up any secrets, but because the 4th Mizukage wanted to better implement the policies of the Blood Mist village. As for hellofication, I completely don't understand what it means, and I've never even heard of it, Ao replied calmly. Captain Gin Ichimaru was just joking. Don't worry, I believe you. Kaguya Nami hesitated for 2 seconds, then resumed her gentle tone, saying, I'm a fair person. I asked you 2 questions, and I'll allow you to ask me 1. 2 questions for 1, indeed fair. Just a friendly reminder, since you don't know about hellofication, it's best not to investigate or ask. Trying to pry into areas you shouldn't touch will only bring misfortune. Ignorance is bliss. Kaguya Nami held up an index finger to her lips. Answers given too easily will be suspected, and once the seed of doubt is planted, it will eventually take root and sprout. Death never doubts humanity's determination and courage to court death. I understand. Ao swallowed the question that was on the tip of his tongue. He didn't believe a word this person said, but the question he had just asked clearly revealed that this person, or rather this little-known organization, was related to hellofication. Even if the ethereal monsters appearing in the village weren't their doing, they must be inextricably linked to them. They know the hidden secrets behind it all, but it doesn't matter. I've already obtained some clues. As long as I can survive and relay the information back to the village, HMPH. I want to know if the deaths of those ninjas guarding the village entrance are related to you? Quinn carefully replaced his only question with another, asking cautiously. Intelligence gathering is a matter of life and death for the ninjas. Quinn is risking his life to ask this question. He already has the answer in his heart, but he still needs to verify it with Kaguya Nami. This answer is crucial. He can use it to deduce the credibility of her previous words. You're judging me maliciously, which makes me very sad. I thought we had established a basic level of trust. Kaguya Nami's tone was filled with disappointment and dejection. He paused and said softly, Testing someone's bottom line is dangerous. If it were someone petty, you'd probably be dead already. Fortunately, I'm always magnanimous and willing to keep my promises, so my answer to you is, of course. Kaguya Nami spat out 2 light syllables through gritted teeth. Of course, yes, of course, no. There were clearly 2 possible interpretations, but Ao didn't dwell on it. Instead, he directly assumed that Kaguya Nami meant the first thing. The other party didn't deny it but directly admitted it. A cruel yet honest answer? Ao couldn't see through the person in front of him at all, as if he were looking through a strange mask. You could never see the true expression on the other person's face. Why? You're too greedy. That's a different question, and you obviously can't afford the reward for answering it. Kaguya Nami's tone became impatient. He narrowed his eyes at Ao's pale white eyes and said in a sinister voice, attempting to peek at someone's true face behind their mask without permission is extremely rude. It's worse than your stalking us earlier. Kaguya Nami could feel a dark gaze trying to see through the mask and spy on his stunning beauty. He almost exposed himself. What a heinous crime. Fortunately, the mask was covered with a layer of spiritual energy, which blocked the pervert's peeping. I'm sorry, I couldn't control myself. Ao realized something was wrong and quickly apologized sincerely. What gave you such foolish courage? Was it this dead fish like white eye? You know, I hate it when people roll their eyes at me. It offends me. Kaguya Nami slowly raised his palm. What are you trying to do? Ao saw undisguised malice in the eyes behind the mask, a chill running from his tailbone to his head. He immediately abandoned any thought of escape and turned to run for his life. Kaguya Nami stood still, glancing at Ichimaru out of the corner of her eye. This charade is coming to an end, isn't it? Ichimaru knew Nami's rhythm perfectly. He raised his hand, pointing it at Ao's fleeing back, and began chanting in the ancient Shiki language, thunderous carriage, the gap of the spinning wheel, this thing has light, split into 6. The chant pierced Ao's mind like a shadow, as if someone were whispering in his ear. Goosebumps rose on the back of his head, as if he were being locked onto by a terrifying monster. The next instant, beams of light, tearing through the night, shone from his wide-open white eyes. Like a rapidly spinning wheel of light, it split into 6 beams, piercing the darkness and striking his body directly, forming a flower bud blooming in the night, while he himself was bound and nailed to the center of the petals. His steps faltered, his body stiffened, his chakra flow blocked. It felt as if his very soul had been nailed to the ground, unable to move. Why did you run away? Did you think I would hurt you? A gentle voice came from behind. The masked man in the white eyes stepped on withered branches, walking slowly towards him, and following closely behind was the ever-smiling, squinting eye. A newbie is begging for monthly tickets, rewards, and anything else. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Picking Up a White Eye. Crack, crack, crack. In the silent forest, the night wind was cold, even the bird song and insect chirps hid, only the crisp sound of fallen leaves being crushed underfoot could be heard, each step approaching from afar, like the approaching footsteps of death, each step pounding on Quing's heartbeat. Why am I running away? Can't you have any self-awareness? The footsteps stopped. A chilling white mask filled the entire pupil, the breath like that exhaled from an ice cellar brushing against Quing's cheek, making the fine hairs on Quing's face stand on end. An unbelievable thought suddenly surfaced in her mind. The temperature of your breath is like it's mixed with ice shards. It's not like a living person at all. From the first moment I saw you, I always felt that the features on your face were not harmonious. There was a shocking crack between your soul and your body. So it's the problem with this eyeball. It doesn't match you, I bet. This eye doesn't actually belong to you. Milky white, so beautiful. Kaguya Nami admired the eye almost face to face. It was 100 times more realistic and beautiful than any depiction in anime, pure white and translucent, like a sacred pearl, a magnificent work of art. Placed in the blood-filled eye socket of a lecherous middle-aged man, it was defiled. What are you doing? His blue eye socket bulged and burst, blood overflowing into the socket. A rough friction felt on his retina, a slender finger was tracing the lines of his eyeball. Don't move. It's just a simple minimally invasive surgery. Trust me, it'll be over soon. Kaguya Nami reassured him softly, her finger plunging into the concave surface of the eye socket, the nail piercing the bone. Like a scalpel, she severed the adhesions of muscle and nerves. Sure enough, as she said, in less than half a minute, a perfectly intact eyeball was pulled out. Blood gushed from his eye sockets, soaking his entire face. Veins bulged on his forehead, and his face was contorted in pain. He gasped for breath, his teeth clenched. His white eye had been gouged out. Don't worry, the surgery went exceptionally well. I believe that after removing this lesion, you will never again stalk or spy on others. This morbid quirk has been eradicated from you. You may not understand now, but you will appreciate my good intentions later. You're welcome. Kaguya Nami wiped the blood from her white eye and examined it in her palm. You have achieved the achievement. You are my eye. You have found a lost white eye. You firmly believe that only by keeping this eye safe can you not betray its beauty. A fateful encounter. Achievement points gained 500. You have activated the event, Artist's Collection Exhibition, 1/6. Kaguya Nami immediately felt a double harvest and joy. So, she tore a piece of cloth from Ao's clothes, wrapped the eyeball around it, and put it in her pocket. Let's go, to the next stop. Kaguya Nami turned and left, satisfied. Don't you need to do some hemostasis? Ichimaru snapped his fingers lightly, and the six-strand light prison dissipated into the air. He glanced indifferently at Ao, who was lying stiffly on the ground, exhausted, and offered a kind reminder. Is he unconscious? Yes. Then it's alright, he won't remember. Having completed her performance for the day, Kaguya Nami left without looking back. What I mean is that ninjas have very high tolerance. Their eyes are like USB sockets to them, plugged in and unplugged, no special treatment needed. I understand. That's good, don't misunderstand me. No, foolish humans might be deceived by cold masks and forget to feel the warmth behind them, but Ichimaru knows very well that Nami-sama is truly the most humane Shinigami in the history of Seireitei. The intermittent laughter and footsteps faded into the distance, and the dark forest fell silent. After a while, the rustling of insects emerged from the soil to breathe, and the low chirping of birds echoed in the night, as if bidding farewell to the two Shinigami. His body, which had been unconscious in the mud, twitched and he awoke. Ao got up, carefully scraping away the blood and mud from his eye sockets, revealing gaping, dark, and menacing openings. Seireitei. The 13 guardians of the Gotei 13. I'll remember those names. His heavy, weak body staggered through the mud, like a slow-moving zombie, heading towards Kirigakure, blending seamlessly with the surrounding night, creating an inexplicable harmony. 2 days later. At the round table of a Kirigakure high-level meeting, a freshly prepared S-rank encrypted intelligence report was slammed onto the table. Ao, his face wrapped in bandages, placed his hands on the table, surveying the high-ranking members qualified to attend the meeting. Zabuza, with half his face wrapped in bandages, revealing only a pair of cold eyes, Kisame Hoshigaki, with a ferocious face like shark gills and a mouthful of sharp teeth, and Hazuki Mainjutsu, the genius of the Hazuki clan, a powerful family in Kirigakure, with a head full of white hair and braids and a bandage around his neck, looking impatient. Everyone's a bandage accessory, their aesthetics are so simple it's baffling. Then there's Genshi, the Kirigakure elder dressed like a monk, and Madarumi, the only woman with a stunning figure standing behind him. The fourth Mizukage's seat was empty, and no one present seemed surprised. Aside from suppressing rebellions and implementing his policies in the Bloody Mist village, Yagura Karadachi had long since shown little interest in other matters. According to Ao's report, the monsters that appeared that night are called holification, and are likely the result of some kind of forbidden human experimentation. We don't know any more specific information yet, but the only thing we can deduce is that it involves an organization called the Seireitei, or the Gotei 13. Am I right in my understanding? Hazuki Mainjutsu licked his sharp teeth, one hand transforming into transparent liquid as he held up the report, spinning it in front of his eyes. He quickly scanned the title, Preliminary Investigation into the Holification Incident in Kirigakure, number of 9, approximately 4 meters long and 5 meters tall, not belonging to any known animal class or order, lacking flesh and blood, chakra condensation, exhibiting tailed beast-like properties, all sharing the characteristic of having white masks behind which appear to be human faces. Currently, the faces have been identified and match the appearances of 9 ninjas from our village whose bodies were later found in their homes, Nagato Kazuya, Ju County Man, and Nagain Yujiro, Preliminary inference is that the bodies of these 9 individuals were used as material, and through some currently unknown means, they were transformed into monster forms. This transformation is defined as holification by the secret organization Seireitei or Gotei 13. But the name is unknown and requires further information. This organization also appeared that night, and 2 members have been identified. The members are dressed in uniforms, characterized by black robes with white hori and diamond patterns embroidered on the back, which are suspected to be code names used to distinguish members within the organization. It is preliminarily identified that there are 2 members, one codenamed Ichimaru Jin, whose appearance is similar to the other codename Unknown, who wears a mask similar to that of the Hollow Feed monster and has an exceptionally vicious personality. A boring report. Did you show it to the Mizukage, Lord Yagura? I guess he doesn't care about the contents of this report, so why waste our time? Hazuki Maingetsu wet his hands dampening the report, showing no interest in its contents. If the report is true, then the village suffered a premeditated attack, and even my white eye was gouged out. How can you say that? Quinn was furious, the scabs bursting open and staining the bandages a crimson red. Get this straight, this is the village of Blood Mist. Life is worthless here. If you dare waste my time with this excuse again, I'll gouge out your last eye too. Hazuki Maingetsu's eyes were bloodshot as he grinned and left the room, 360-degree somersault, belly roll, buttock swing, rolling on the spot, begging for mercy. Chapter 16 The Evil Organization 13. Blood splattered through the bandages, dripping dark red blood onto the table. Ao gritted his teeth, reminding himself to stay calm. If he weren't so weak against Hazuki Maingetsu, he would have already smashed Maingetsu's rotten teeth. There is no mercy in the Blood Mist. Just as Lord Yagura said, whether monster or human, as long as they can be killed, there is no difference. Therefore, I don't care about the holification mentioned in this report. In a hoarse voice, Zabuza, the Demon King, silently appeared behind Ao, his kunai slashing down. Swoosh! The kunai pierced the bleeding bandages, inserted itself into the empty eye socket, then paused and flicked backward, snapping and tearing the bandages to reveal the blood-scabbed eye hole inside. The cold, sharp edge pressed against the flesh of his eye, a terrifying replay of the day before. Ao froze, his head snapping back to face the cold, indifferent Zabuza. I don't care about the words in this report, because I only believe the truth I see with my own eyes. Now I can be completely certain that your eyes really were gouged out. Zabuza flicked the blood off his kunai, his expression devoid of any remorse. I don't care about the hollow feed monsters mentioned in the report. Those ugly, useless, deformed monsters, I can easily hack them to pieces. What I want to know is, if I encountered the person who took your eyes, how many blows would it take to kill them? Zabuza was certain he could also take Ao's eyes. He had already tested it. Ao covered his eye sockets, black blood seeping between his fingers. Meeting Zabuza's cold, cruel gaze, he swallowed the anger rising in his chest. Another madman like Hazuki Maingetsu. Why are there so many madmen like this in the village? You will die. Ao still softened, saving Zabuza's face, and didn't tell the whole truth. His true thoughts were, given that person's extremely vile personality, if Zabuza were to provoke you so recklessly, I'm afraid you'd be tortured to the point of wishing for death. Say that again? Zabuza's face was terrifyingly grim. This conclusion can't be mixed with emotions, it will affect the village's assessment of this organization's strength. Genshi, flipping through the report, raised an eyebrow. Madarumi frowned at Ao, while Kisame Hoshigaki's pupils contracted almost imperceptibly. One of them should be the captain of one of the 13th divisions of the Gotei 13, named Gin Ichimaru. He's a man with a perpetually fake smile and eyes narrowed to slits. He was the first one I fought. He overwhelmed me with just his physical skills. No, objectively speaking, I was completely powerless. My Byakugan couldn't keep up with his speed at all, I could only see a blurry afterimage. If he wanted to, I probably would have died the moment we met. Recalling the situation wasn't easy, especially remembering that stark white mask. Ao felt a throbbing pain in his eye sockets. He adjusted his breathing. The other person's codename is unknown. I didn't directly fight him, but my water clone dissolved without even touching him. Moreover, from my recollection, the masked man was the one in control. Therefore, I deduced that his strength is above Gin Ichimaru's. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. No one present was stupid, they all understood the subtext in Ao's words. Gin Ichimaru could kill Ao instantly. Zabuza is certainly stronger than Ao, but could he kill him instantly? Most likely not. Then, the masked man's strength is probably even greater than Gin Ichimaru's. A true battle can't be calculated or deduced. Zabuza, somewhat embarrassed, sneered, shouldered his executioner's blade, and left the house, vowing in his heart that if he ever encountered these two, he would definitely take their heads and show them to Ao. Zabuza is right. In a life-or-death battle, you can't simply deduce who's stronger or weaker. There's no point in discussing that. Master Genji, mature and composed, eased the atmosphere in the room. Furthermore, I've carefully reviewed this report. Ao only made inferences about the masked man's strength. Is it possible that his strength is actually weaker than Ichimaru Jin's, but Ao is intimidated by Ichimaru Jin's power and doesn't dare to act rashly, leaving him at Ao's mercy? After all, it was Ichimaru Jin who initially defeated you and later used strange ninjutsu to restrain your movements. The masked man was merely issuing orders from beginning to end. This proves that his status is above Ichimaru Jin's, but it doesn't directly prove that his strength is also above Ichimaru Jin's. Master Genji closed the report and offered another conjecture. Impossible. Ao insisted on his opinion. Kaguya Nami was simply too inhuman, causing Ao a strong psychological trauma. Alright, let's not discuss the masked man's strength for now. Let's just talk about Ichimaru Jin. Ao, do you think he possesses cage-level strength? The master cut to the chase. As one of the 5 great shinobi villages, only those who have reached cage level are considered for discussion at high-level meetings. This was also a concern for Kisame Hoshigeki, a mysterious organization he'd never heard of before, and if it had 1 or 2 more unaffiliated cage-level members, he couldn't afford to be indifferent. I can't accurately assess his strength. Cage level is a relatively general concept, with varying degrees of strength, but Ao touched his forehead. There was a crack in his skull. If it had been just an inch deeper, his brains would have spilled out. I believe Ichimaru Jin has crossed the threshold of cage level. At least in terms of speed alone, he possesses the speed of a cage level expert. An unaffiliated cage level expert, and one who had never appeared in Kirigakure's intelligence system before. The Gotei 13, cage level number tentatively set at 1, with a possibility of 2 appearing? No matter how many there were, Yuan-shi never considered that even if it was called the 13 divisions, and one of its captains clearly demonstrated cage-level strength, it couldn't possibly mean the remaining 12 divisions were all of the same rank. Perhaps there were only 2 people in total, just there to advertise, and the remaining 11 divisions were empty shells. While this possibility was unlikely, an organization with such a strange name was clearly up to no good. It was probably just bluffing, and calling itself an ancient organization? These days, do some new organizations really exaggerate without thinking? Do they really think cage-level experts are easy prey, or do they think the higher-ups of the ninja villages are all idiots? Old people are shrewd. These kinds of deceptive tricks might fool naive youngsters, but they wouldn't fool an old man like him who's been around for a lifetime. Of course, even disregarding the padding within, this organization still deserved Yuan-shi's attention. After all, an unknown organization would likely possess 1 or 2 cage-level experts, and judging from their initial encounter, the organization showed extreme malice towards Kirigakure, a truly malevolent force. Whether an organization is good or evil isn't determined by its slogans and propaganda, but by its actual actions. The village massacre, the theft of the Byakugan, and the holification incident with its deep connection. On their first appearance, they showered Kirigakure with 3 major gifts. Unless the Kirigakure leadership is collectively out of their minds, they wouldn't believe these are just coincidences. This organization is clearly targeting Kirigakure. Each of these incidents has caused bloodshed and death in Kirigakure, yet that masked man dares to claim the organization represents justice and order. I've never seen such shamelessness. And gouging out eyes and then releasing the person to relay a message, how utterly depraved. In conclusion, the Seireitei, Gotei 13, is an evil organization conducting forbidden human research, wantonly creating bloodshed and spreading death and fear, spewing lies and nonsense, and is extremely shameless and depraved. I'm begging for monthly tickets, rewards, and investments, for free. I'm begging in every way possible. Is the news of Chapter 17 being blocked? Regarding the characterization of the Gotei 13 as evil, the Kirigakure leadership quickly reached a consensus, unanimously approving the decision. Should we order the Anbu to initiate the manhunt and issue a bounty? Kisame Hoshigeki abruptly interjected. Before understanding the Gotei 13's true purpose, he didn't want the outside world to notice this organization. The reason? It was the question in the report: is Kirigakure's policy of isolation intended to conceal some unspeakable secret? Unlike Ao, who seemed clueless, Kisame, with his dual identity, knew perfectly well. Kirigakure certainly had many unspeakable secrets. An evil organization was spying on the secrets of the Blood Mist village. How far had they progressed? What conspiracies were hidden behind it all? A sense of déjà vu washed over him, and Kisame felt as if he'd swallowed a fly, a taste he couldn't quite describe. Publicly announcing the bounty is tantamount to Kirigakure giving the 13 Gotei 13 free advertising. I'm afraid that masked man will be laughing in his sleep. This is completely against the interests of the village. Genshi resolutely rejected this foolish suggestion. Intelligence is the lifeline of ninjas. The limited intelligence data on the 13 Gotei 13 was obtained by Kirigakure at a heavy price. How could it be released to the outside world for free? Master is right. Kisame Hoshigaki was overjoyed. With such a dedicated and shrewd elder managing Kirigakure's affairs, he didn't need to worry about the village's future at all. Keep the news under wraps, classify the Gotei 13's information as top secret, and secretly order the ANBU to investigate and gather relevant intelligence. This arrangement will suffice for now. In the long history of the ninja world, some inexplicable small organizations will always emerge from time to time, but they are like delicate flowers. You don't even need to pay them any attention. Just observe them coldly, and one day, they will wither and die on their own. His weathered and sentimental tone, coupled with his wrinkled face like old tree bark, seemed to be witnessing the weight and cruelty of history. It was very convincing. At least, Ao and Madarumi were completely impressed by the elder's wisdom at this moment. The stubbornness and arrogance of the great ninja village, just as that person said, are all rotten pieces of wood that should be swept into history, exuding a boring, decaying stench. I still prefer the taste of fresh blood to stimulate my taste buds. Kisame Hoshigaki sneered inwardly, outwardly raising both hands in agreement with the master's decision. Anything else to report? The master asked. The sealing team and the medical team both want to study the sealed hollow feed monsters, but the slices they took, since they also lack physical form, can only be sealed. Otherwise, they will attack or dissolve into black smoke. For now, we haven't found an effective research method. Madarumi said expressionlessly. In addition, the corpses corresponding to the hollow feed monsters have all been dug out from the ruins. Their deaths were all gruesome and horrific. All the ninjas who died in the hollow feed incident and the village entrance massacre have been identified. Only one researcher supervisor is missing. The research institute is located in a very remote area. It shouldn't have been affected that night, right? Ao interjected. No. Madarumi replied. The missing guard was just a chunin named Mutoda. He disappeared without a trace, neither alive nor dead. Since he disappeared that very night, it was specifically reported. However, I don't think there's any connection. That's obvious. He must have taken advantage of the chaos in the village to defect, Kisame Hoshigaki said, revealing the truth. He got up and left a meeting room. The discussion in the meeting room ceased, everyone tacitly concluding the matter. Little did they know, their overconfidence led them to miss the very beginning of the story. This was the only and last time anyone in the ninja world truly touched the truth. For the rest of their lives, the air would be gradually polluted by lies, and endless shadows would rise wave after wave, until the sky was completely given a new color. A quarter of an hour later, Kisame Hoshigaki returned home, took the bloated orange cat out of its cage, and casually tossed it into the huge fish tank, enjoying feeding the baby shark that looked a lot like him, a shark he had specially caught from the sea. The orange cat thrashed wildly in the water, its chubby face showing anthropomorphic despair. A baby shark swam over from the bottom of the tank, opening its blood-red maw full of sharp teeth to bite down. At the last second, the orange cat jumped out of the tank, collapsing onto the ground like a lump of mud. A fishy cat life. Kisame Hoshigaki then sliced off a piece of white flesh from the hungry baby shark's back and placed it in the orange cat's food bowl, the latter winning its daily sashimi. Your way of feeding pets is truly eye-opening. A white zetsu clapped its hands in the corner. Always be vigilant about danger and always maintain an interest in hunting. This is the reason why ninjas can live longer. I'm just reminding myself of this. Kisame Hoshigaki sucked the blood from his finger. He walked to the table, picked up a pen and paper, and quickly transcribed the intelligence he had reviewed in the meeting room word for word. He then handed it to White Zetsu, coldly stating, "A mysterious organization has suddenly appeared in Kirigakure. Their purpose is unclear, but they may have discovered some of Kirigakure's secrets. The 13th Division of the Gotei 13. White Zetsu quickly scanned the report, stroking his bald patch, his eyes darting around. "Those tailed beast-like monsters are called holofication? That's incredible technology. If we could obtain it, perhaps the plan could be implemented more easily. I'll pass the intelligence on to that person immediately." White Zetsu suddenly chuckled nervously. "What suggestions do you have for this organization?" Kisame Hoshigaki conjured up an image of a man wearing a spiral-patterned mask. He pondered for a moment, his serrated teeth grinding together as he said, "The fewer unknown variables, the better. Every sign of danger should be nipped in the bud. That's a ninja's standard answer." White Zetsu licked his lips, his body sinking into the ground. "Historical process, the glory of the Seireitei. You need to fill in the missing fragments of the Shinigami in the New World, popularize and spread the history of the Seireitei, revive the ancient Seireitei, and restore its power and glory over death." Sub-processes 73 and 94 in this process list have been completed, in a town in the Land of Water. Two members of an evil organization officially designated by Kirigakure swaggered into a dilapidated antique shop. Kaguya Nami was examining a porcelain vase when a prompt message flashed across her retina without warning, "Please give me your Yupiao." Chapter 18. The next awakened character. Unlike the anime's focus on ninja village battles, Kishimoto Masashi was just a manga artist. He had no real understanding of ninja world settings. In the real ninja world, ninja villages occupied only a small portion of a nation's territory. The true land was comprised of ordinary people. Cities, governments, villages, markets, temples, dojos, and bandits. These ordinary people, forming the core of a vibrant tapestry, collectively built the foundation of this world. In contrast, ninja villages were an extremely dull and monotonous color. If one had to describe it, it would be like the color of congealed blood, a reddish black, a filthy darkness born from bloodshed, more oppressive than the color of night. However, the problem is that, without warning, this blood-coagulating dye began to spread throughout the world. The once vibrant spectrum of colors was tainted and assimilated into a single hue. Cities desolate, villages are deserted, markets crumble, and temples and monasteries become dens of bandits. The entire nation is supplying the ninja villages with blood, and the ninja villages then sell their killings to the world, creating a vicious cycle until the entire world is dragged into a blood-stained tapestry. The ninja villages were initially established as violent institutions to protect the national government. Now, they have become cancerous festering sores that cannot be removed, desperately sucking and draining the life force from the world. From Kaguya Nami's journey, the road is filled with desolate fields, the bones of those who starved and froze to death lying unburied by the roadside, and the bandits and robbers are pitifully ragged, making Kaguya Nami almost reluctant to fight back when she is robbed. In the end, all three waves of bandits are killed by a Ichimaru Jin. Kaguya Nami, unable to stop them in time, recites a prayer for them. Unfortunately, the cheat system didn't offer any rewards. Upon entering the town, the streets were desolate and deserted. A few shops were open, but they all turned pale with fear at the sight of Kaguya Nami and Ichimaru Jin, keeping their distance. They must have mistaken them for infamous ninjas. There's absolutely no fun in shopping here. I'm increasingly disappointed with this world, Kaguya Nami sighed deeply. The system of this world is already distorted. To be able to wreak havoc on reality to this extent, I'm actually somewhat impressed by the destructive power of ninjas, Ichimaru Jin said, his eyes narrowed, his tone full of sarcasm. Turning into a dilapidated antique shop, Kaguya Nami casually rummaged through bottles and jars, none of which looked like collectible art. He sighed, realizing he shouldn't have had any expectations. He was just browsing the market hoping to find a bargain. The cheat system hadn't stipulated that things made by ordinary people had no collectible value. But, as it turned out, Kaguya Nami was too optimistic. Why would the cheat system have such a low-level loophole for him to exploit? Oh well, I'll just consider it a bottle to hold my eyeballs. Kaguya Nami consoled herself, picking out a wooden carved bottle. Then, she took a piece of cloth from her pocket, untied it to reveal the whites of her eyes, and tossed them into the bottle. Suddenly, a line of subtitles flashed across her retina. Huh? Kaguya Nami was taken aback. She had almost thought the wooden bottle in her hand was an art piece. It turned out to be just a beautiful misunderstanding. Sub-processes 73 and 94 of the glorious history of Seireitei have been completed. Kaguya Nami blinked, opened the drop-down menu, and scrolled down. 73. The gaze of the 5 great ninja villages. The name of Seireitei has begun to attract the attention of forces at the level of the 5 great ninja villages. Achieved. 94. Rivals are enemies. A certain organization also hiding behind the scenes has developed hostility towards Seireitei, and you have received spying from your rivals. Achieved. P.S. The glory of Seireitei is gradually spreading to hostile organizations. As the saying goes, the one who knows you best is always your enemy. Spreading the influence of Seireitei through the fear of hostile forces is truly a brilliant idea. Total progress increased to 5.4%. First settlement threshold reached. Achievement points 1000 gained. The Hidden Mist village did a pretty good job, and there's the spying from our own kind. Enemies. How can these be enemies? We're all good friends, aren't we? My Seireitei treats all organizations with goodwill. Kaguya Nami handed a wooden jar to the pale-faced shopkeeper, her voice unusually gentle and kind coming from behind her mask. Do you have formaldehyde? Please fill it up for me. If not, saline solution will do. The antique shop owner, pale-faced, took the jar, staring at the lone eyeball inside, his eyelids involuntarily rolling upwards to reveal large expanses of white. Finally, when Kaguya Nami left, the antique shop owner forced her to pay for the entire purchase free of charge. Holding a corked wooden jar in her hand, Kaguya Nami said somewhat embarrassedly to Ichimaru, compared to those treacherous, cunning, and ungrateful ninjas, I definitely prefer these simple and kind ordinary people. Yes, I agree with President Nami. Ichimaru and President Nami shared the same values, practically identical. Want to continue browsing, President Nami? Ichimaru turned his head and saw the antique shop quickly close its doors, his smile becoming even more friendly. No, there's no need to continue shopping. I've already gotten what I wanted, now all I need is a fresh corpse. Kaguya Nami mentally calculated her current achievement points to be 3,187. The countdown to the 90% off sale had only 6 hours and 37 minutes left. These past 2 days, seemingly aimless wandering, had actually been Kaguya Nami meticulously searching for opportunities to trigger quests, but it was proving incredibly difficult. Outside the Hidden Mist village, all she saw were corpses and bandits. She buried the corpses on the road. No achievement. She cleansed 3 groups of bandits, leaving none alive, and even mercifully recited prayers. No reward. She finally found a town and entered, but everyone on the street avoided them like the plague. In games, you know you need to trigger NPCs to accept quests, but right now there wasn't a single living person to interact with. How the hell was she supposed to trigger achievements events? With a 90% off sale countdown ticking away and no opportunity to farm achievement points, Kaguya Nami was almost in despair. Now it's too late to change locations. The time spent adrift at sea would have exhausted the promotional activities. Fortunately, Kirigakure still remembered her and sent a wave of warmth from afar. I think I understand now. If you want to farm achievement points, you still have to take advantage of the ninja villages. Kaguya Nami learned her lesson and summarized her experience in her mind. A fresh corpse? Ichimaru murmured several times, his hand unconsciously stroking the hilt of his sword. He read the subtext behind those words. Is President Nami planning to awaken another captain from the Seireitei? Yes, I plan to awaken another captain to come to the human world. I'm just still hesitating about which captain to awaken. After all, my current ability can only awaken one captain at a time, and then I have to rest and prepare for a long time again. Sigh, it's all because my strength is too weak, making the remaining captains have to wait in their long slumber. That must be very agonizing. Kaguya Nami's tone was full of self-blame and guilt. The existence of her cheat code was Kaguya Nami's biggest secret. Even if Gin Ichimaru had some vague suspicions, Nami Kaguya would never openly admit it. Even if the contract forged by the external power-up was unbreakable, it didn't stop President Nami from maintaining her mystique in front of her subordinates. Time has no meaning for the slumbering Grim Reapers. Whichever captain is awakened first is a matter of fate, and I think all the captains understand that. In fact, being awakened from eternal slumber, every captain is genuinely grateful for President Nami's gift. President Nami doesn't need to feel guilty or ashamed. Gin Ichimaru bowed to Nami Kaguya, his words filled with sincere gratitude. I feel much better now that Captain Gin Ichimaru says that, but I'm still conflicted. Which captain should I awaken first? Who does Captain Gin Ichimaru prefer me to awaken? Nami Kaguya stared at Gin Ichimaru with bright, clear eyes. Of course, I prefer. Chapter 19 is him. Of course I hope so. Silent images flash through Gin Ichimaru's mind, the first being the man named Aizen Sasuke. His flowing dark brown hair covered half his forehead, his rigid, square-rimmed glasses concealed the warmth in his eyes, and his face always wore a reassuring smile. His voice was always gentle and soft. Until he removed his glasses, swept his hair back with both hands, his messy bangs slicked back into a jet black, shiny slicked back style, and the sky above him was torn apart by darkness. That scene was absolutely etched into the history of Soul Society. Who could erase that nightmare from their memory? Just recalling that hypocritical face made Gin Ichimaru's brain feel utterly humiliated. If that man were awakened, perhaps there would be a way to break free from the contract binding their souls. It should be possible, right? Afterwards, Kaguya Nami would be killed, and I would most likely die with her? The probability of being saved by Aizen's kindness was too low. What if Aizen fails to break free from the contract? The combination of Kaguya Nami and Aizen Sasuke is too much to bear. Just thinking about it makes Gin Ichimaru tremble. Why bother? If Aizen Sasuke can't be awakened, then at least Nami should be made to completely rid herself of this dangerous thought. That man is unlike any other squad leader. Then, what about Captain Commander Yamamoto Jinryosei Shigakuni? Forget it. With that old man's rigidity and stubbornness, he wouldn't mind his soul being bound by the new Soul King. He'd probably be pleased with the successor methods. If I dared to show even the slightest sign of anything amiss, he'd kill me. This is no joke. The Captain Commander's motto is, "Those who neglect justice, I will never forgive." And his justice is loyalty to the laws of Soul Society, loyalty to the royal family, and loyalty to the Supreme Soul King. Gin Ichimaru sighed inwardly. The two most likely to break free of their restraints were ironically the ones he dared not awaken. So, he could only awaken the remaining squad leaders. His mind raced through the faces and voices of the other squad leaders. Second squad leader Soifan, that woman doesn't like me, eliminated. Fourth squad leader Unhanaritsu, that woman is quite deceptive, but I feel she's more likely to be swayed by Chairman Nami's hypocritical facade, so I'll leave her out for now, eliminated. Sixth squad leader Kachiki Byakuya, seems alright, pending. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th squads flashed through his mind before being ruthlessly filtered out. He wondered if those bottom-ranked squad leaders would hold a grudge against Gin Ichimaru when they woke up. Gin Ichimaru was completely unaware that the process of selecting and ranking them was a process of offending people. Chairman Nami had already prepared for the worst, shifting the blame far ahead. He was currently basking in the trust and power he enjoyed. Kenpachi Zaraki, the captain of the 11th Division, is a man with a beastly thirst for killing. This new world suits him well, but he probably won't allow himself to be bound. He might even perish with Chairman Nami, dragging himself down with him. Eliminate him. Mayuri Kuratsuchi, the captain of the 12th Division, isn't the strongest among the captains, but his outstanding performance lies in his technological research and development capabilities. He also serves as the director of the Technology Development Bureau. Gin Ichimaru's mind conjured up an image of a research madman who always wore a black and white mask, wore a shihaka with an outward-turned purple collar, changed his headdress and collar daily, had a scalpel-length nail on his right middle finger, and had modified his body into a weapon system. The concept and version of the armored ghoul were invented and manufactured by Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Letting out a long breath, Gin Ichimaru already had the right person in mind. A trustworthy smile curved his lips, and he narrowed his eyes to observe Kaguya Nami's expression. Adjusting his words, he said, "If we can only awaken one captain at a time, I think we should awaken Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi from his slumber first." Mayuri Kuratsuchi? Kaguya Nami gave Gin Ichimaru a meaningful look, vaguely guessing his thoughts. She didn't expose him but smiled. It seems Captain Gin Ichimaru has been thinking for a long time. Is there anything special about this Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi? Aside from his position as a squad leader, he is also the director of the Technology Development Bureau, a genius scientist. Since Chairman Nami can only awaken one captain this time, rather than simply adding a pure combat force, it's better to awaken Mayuri Kuratsuchi. We'll gain a captain-level combat force, and at the same time, receive strong support in logistics and technology. If Chairman Nami wants to revive the glory of the Seireitei in the New World, Technological support is equally essential, and in some ways, even more valuable than pure force. Of course, this is just my humble opinion. The final decision rests with Chairman Nami. Gin Ichimaru bowed slightly, perfectly embodying the demeanor of a loyal and respectful subordinate. Behind the mask, Gin couldn't see through Kaguya Nami's true expression, only sensing that her gaze seemed not focused on him, but rather swept past him towards the fallen leaves swept into the air by the wind. The swirling leaves drifted lightly onto the muddy puddles, their dark veins reflected in the light. After a moment, Kaguya Nami turned her gaze back to Ichimaru Jin, her eyes filled with gentle trust. I trust Captain Ichimaru Jin's judgment. Could you explain why we ruled out the other captains first? No problem. Ichimaru Jin had already prepared his arguments in his mind. He would comment on the other captains' flaws, sometimes truthfully, sometimes falsely, sometimes objectively, sometimes with embellishments, and occasionally tease Mayuri Kuratsuchi about his relative advantages, gradually tipping the scales in his favor. Little did he know, Kaguya Nami had already mentally reviewed all the reasons he gave. Aside from the fundamental constraint of achievement points, Kaguya Nami had originally planned to awaken Mayuri Kuratsuchi first. We should awaken Mayuri Kuratsuchi first, so I can have a recorder to record everything Ichimaru Jin says and play it back for the other captains later. Unlike now, Kaguya Nami had to painstakingly memorize it and then find a suitable opportunity to privately relay it to the other captains. I understand. Following Captain Ichimaru Jin's suggestion, I will awaken Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Before that, we need to help Captain Mayuri find a suitable prosthetic body for modification as soon as possible. Kaguya Nami looked at the desolate town and murmured, there can't be no living ninjas in this town, right? Suitable? Ichimaru Jin caught a key word. Combining it with the process of his own awakening. Ichimaru Jin could interpret that a fresh corpse was needed, but he was not clear about the more specific requirements. Armed prosthetic bodies require a ninja's body for modification. The freshness is determined by the time of death, and the success of the awakening process is also affected by factors such as the body's health, appearance, strength level, bloodline limit, and endocrine hormone regulation. In short, it's an extremely complex and mentally taxing process. I spent a lot of effort finding a perfect match for Captain Ichimaru Jin. Kaguya Nami spoke casually, but it wasn't entirely fabricated. After all, the cheat system didn't provide a clear corpse conversion achievement point conversion formula manual, so the final interpretation rested with him. Thank you for your hard work, Chairman. Ichimaru Jin believed her and gave a half bow to Kaguya Nami. It's no trouble at all. It's what I should do. I'm just glad Captain Ichimaru Jin is comfortable using this body. Kaguya Nami waved her hand. My soul is living comfortably in this prosthetic body, and the absorption and circulation of spiritual energy are very smooth. Even my body shape and appearance are sculpted to scale with the real me, down to the shape and color of my birthmark. This is a near-perfect armed prosthetic body. President Nami, you've put in a lot of effort. Gin Ichimaru lowered his head. Thinking about the confinement implanted in his body and the restrictions placed on his soul, how could he not be grateful and obedient to President Nami? Kirigakure has plenty of corpses to choose from, but since leaving Kirigakure, ninjas seem to be as rare as endangered species. I'm worried that I won't be able to find suitable material to modify in the remaining time. Kaguya Nami had accumulated enough achievement points, but she encountered a new problem. Remaining time, are there any time restrictions? Gin Ichimaru couldn't understand. It's hard to explain to you clearly. It involves a series of complex calculations. You just need to know that to awaken a squad leader, enabling him to revive from his long slumber of time and cross the spatial chasm to come to the present world, you need to take advantage of the right time and place. The awakening ceremony can only be held at certain specific times of the year, and once you miss it, you'll have to wait a long time to encounter it again. Yes, Kaguya Nami wasn't lying. Who knows if there will be another discount event? If not, those tens of thousands of achievement points will probably take forever to accumulate. It sounds very profound. The successor to the Soul King does indeed possess some knowledge that I completely don't understand. I wonder if Mayuri Kuratsuchi, once he awakens, can find a way to reverse engineer the principles of this technology. Gin Ichimaru silently memorized every word that President Nami inadvertently revealed. When is the next time? Gin Ichimaru asked. Kaguya Nami traced circles along the mask's texture with her index finger, then announced the exact time down to the minute. 6 hours and 21 minutes. This is the last time the awakening ritual could be performed. Hisachimaru Jin hissed in shock. Time was running out for Mayuri Kuratsuchi. He widened his narrowed eyes slightly. May I ask, President Nami, how long did it take to create a suitable prosthetic body for me last time? 1098, which is 3 years and 3 days. Kaguya Nami wasn't lying either. This included the time spent getting lost and the time it took to create the prosthetic body. However, back then, there were more technical hurdles to overcome. Now, all that's missing is a matching corpse. It's the technical hurdle of implanting the restraint to achieve control, isn't it? Ichimaru Jin silently grumbled inwardly, but outwardly pressed. How will President Nami confirm if the corpse is a match? What happens if it's not a perfect match? Kaguya Nami placed her palm on Ichimaru Jin's chest, feeling the heartbeat beneath the cold artificial body, and said softly, like this, I only need to touch the corpse for 1 second to accurately detect the degree of matching. The higher the degree of matching, the smoother the awakening ritual will be, and the more perfect the final result will be. Conversely, the lower the degree of matching, the more likely the awakening ritual will have flaws, leading to errors in the final result, or even failure. Errors? Yes, it's possible that the awakened soul and the artificial body cannot perfectly merge, resulting in loss of control, excessive actions, confused thinking, personality splits, mental derangement, and so on. In short, all sorts of possibilities exist, or, the awakened object may spontaneously switch places. Of course, the most likely possibility is direct failure. These are all painful lessons I learned from past failures. Believe me, you don't want to know what happened to those failed products. Fortunately, my technology is now very mature, and the controllability of failure has been greatly reduced. Kaguya Nami answered with a mix of truth and falsehood, demonstrating her meticulous planning and foresight. She had laid the groundwork and preemptively prepared for any potential situations, whether proactively initiated or passively endured. Her cunning was truly remarkable. Ichimaru Jin felt a cold sweat break out on his back. He was relieved that his awakening hadn't gone wrong, or perhaps it had, but Nami-sama had concealed it from him. A terrifying thought immediately lingered in his mind, making his tongue feel stiff. He stammered, I understand. I will try my best to find a suitable prosthetic body for Mayuri Kuratsuchi. If a perfect match couldn't be found, lowering the standards a bit shouldn't bother Mayuri, right? Oh, Captain Ichimaru Jin, do you have any ideas? Where should we look for ninjas? It's too late to turn back to Karegakure now. Kaguya Nami inexplicably believed that this kind of question wouldn't stump Ichimaru Jin. Squinting eyes can always easily spot tempting prey. This is a truth proven in countless worlds. Aside from rare sensory ninjas and the cheat-like radar ability of the Byakugan, which can detect ninjas' tracks from extremely long distances, most ninjas lack this advanced function. Neither Kaguya Nami nor the armed gibbon inherited by Ichimaru Jin possessed this ability before. I didn't expect that encountering a ninja in the ninja world would be so difficult. Kaguya Nami scratched her head, somewhat speechless. That's normal. In any world, professionals are a small minority. They usually have specific areas of gathering and circles of communication, seemingly invisibly separated from the vast world of ordinary people. In reality, finding a professional among a group of ordinary people is often much easier than finding an ordinary person among a group of ordinary people, Ichimaru Jin said with a smile. It's like a drop of ink seeping into clear water, you can't hide it. You found one? Kaguya Nami asked in surprise. Not yet, but we can get them all to come find us. Jin Ichimaru's tone was chillingly menacing. Please vote with monthly tickets, please invest, for free, please give a reward, this newbie is begging for everything. Chapter 20 The Mysterious Mission. Knock, knock, knock. The closed door was rhythmically knocked on. Who is it? We're not doing business today. The knocking became more urgent in response. Forced into a corner, the antique shop owner peeked through the crack in the door. His face instantly froze, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Through the crack, he saw a pair of squinting eyes that had returned, next to a chilling white mask. Back again? Boss, it's still early before dark, why are you in such a hurry to close? A concerned voice came from behind the mask, and a pale, slender arm reached in, its fingers gently holding a wooden vase. He realized the vase was a fake, but he hadn't taken any money from it. Is there a problem? The antique shop owner stammered. The shopkeeper didn't take the money earlier, and I felt a little guilty about it, so I came back specifically to thank him, Kaguya Nami added sincerely. The shopkeeper is a good person. No, you're welcome. The antique shop owner's stiff face relaxed slightly. In that case, please do me another favor. Kaguya Nami stuffed the wooden bottle back into the shopkeeper's hand, politely helping him close his fingers and grip the bottle tightly. It's just a very simple little favor. The antique shop owner was dumbfounded. Half an hour later, dressed in all black, with a black hood pulled low as if he wanted to hide himself completely in his clothes, the antique shop owner left the house and hurried towards the west corner of town, the direction of the black market. In the barely noticeable shadows behind him, two faintly visible figures in black robes trailed far behind. Will it work? It's a very clumsy trick. Anyone with eyes can tell it's a trap, right? Kaguya Nami was very doubtful whether Ichimaru-jin's scheme would work. Greed blinds people. Sometimes, even knowing there's a trap ahead, how many can suppress their inner greed? Gin Ichimaru's lips curled slightly as he confidently explained, first, the bait is very heavy. The value of the Byakugan to ninja is self-evident, few ninjas can resist it. Second, a little thought will reveal the trap. Then, they might think again, realizing the trap isn't necessarily aimed at them. Their cleverness and wishful thinking will lure them in. Finally, someone always has to take the bait. Kaguya Nami hadn't quite grasped it yet, but after a moment's thought, she understood immediately. This was probably the influence of being around people of similar backgrounds. What seemed clumsy was actually a double trap of random killing and entrapment. This squint-eyed guy was indeed wicked. I'd better improve my moral standards in the future to avoid going astray. We're a bit rushed in terms of time, otherwise we could have cast the net wider and caught more fish. Now we can only fish in this one fixed pond, and the final catch depends on the pond's own stock. Hopefully, there will be a suitable artificial body for Mayuri Kiratsuchi. Gin Ichimaru sighed with a hint of melancholy. For a perfectionist, randomness is always a last resort, lacking any sense of beauty. You're right. So, after waking Mayuri Kiratsuchi, our next plan is still to go to Ninja Village. Whether we hide in a major ninja village to reap the benefits or simply occupy a small ninja village to develop peacefully, we won't be in this chaotic situation again. Nami Kaguya hadn't yet decided whether to bet big or small. Originally, she thought that if ordinary people could also profit, then she would be spending money all over the world and then taking the route of surrounding the countryside from the towns. Unexpectedly, it failed. In the end, they still had to follow the model of establishing a base in the countryside. They followed, chatting and dreaming, while the antique shop owner, his steps heavy and his heart filled with trepidation, had been standing at the black market entrance for a full 2 minutes. He had considered abandoning the business and running away, but the piercing gazes were like a cold, slippery venomous snake, coiled around his back, making it impossible for him to even turn his head, let alone escape. Those two bastards were hiding in some unseen corner behind him, watching him the whole way. The antique shop owner gritted his teeth, stamped his foot, and stepped into the black market. It wasn't his first time there, but today it felt particularly eerie. The vendors were cunning, the smuggling gangsters had cold, menacing eyes, the samurai were eccentric, and lurking in the darker corners were human traffickers, pimps selling meat, and thieves with shifty eyes. Sobs, shouts, and yells mingled with the stench of garbage, the putrid smell of rotting corpses, and the mingled scents of sweat and alcohol, a strange cacophony that filled the air. This was the black market, a place where law and morality were thrown into the sewers, yet unsurprisingly, it was the most bustling area in the desolate town. Further in, at the very back, people in disguise, dressed similarly to the antique shop owner, cautiously peeking out with their eyes wide open, were moving about. If you were to remove their outer garments, those hidden beneath would most likely be ruthless murderers, bloodthirsty samurai, terrorists from dangerous organizations, rogue ninjas wanted by the ninja village, or ordinary people like the antique shop owner being remotely controlled, along with the indispensable intelligence spies. Ordinary people and ninjas, separated by a layer of disguise, all tacitly walked here as bounty hunters. The lighting was unusually dim, everyone's figures shrouded in darkness, like a group of demons and monsters that couldn't bear the light. The antique shop owner held his breath and slowly moved towards the main hall. Issuing, receiving, completed, asked a hunched-over, cloudy-eyed recorder, who looked like he might die at any moment. Issue the mission. The antique shop owner's voice trembled. His arm stiffly pulled a wooden bottle from his pocket, his sweat-dampened fingers clenching it white. The bottle slipped from his grasp and fell onto the table, the stopper popping open. A pure white, translucent eyeball rolled out, leaving a trail of clear liquid as it slid down. In the dim light, the distorted liquid trail, a single white eyeball, like a child's scribbles, was unexpectedly exposed to everyone's gaze, eerily silencing the noise in the air, leaving only the sound of breathing. What mission? The withered fingers carefully hooked the white eyeball, slowly pushing it back into the bottle and tightening the stopper. The recorder's voice was even hoarser than before. Escort this item to Konoha in the Land of Fire. The reward upon completion will be paid by Konoha Village. The mission has a 2-hour time limit. If no one claims it within 2 hours, the mission is considered invalid, and someone will come to collect the item. The antique shop owner recited this sentence as if reciting a memorized text, seemingly having exhausted all his strength. Then, ignoring the other person's words, he turned and fled from the center of attention without looking back. No one stopped him. Because the wooden bottle with the white eye still on it remained quietly on the counter, under everyone's watchful eyes, practically begging for votes for the poor antique shop owner. Chapter 21, Overthinking, Just Random Killing. A fleeting glimpse, yet that pure white, translucent luster seemed imprinted on the minds of those who witnessed it, lingering there, causing them to instinctively recall the same name, the Byakugan. The patented eye of the Hyuga clan, a powerful family in Konoha, the Byakugan said to be forever shrouded in mystery, never to be obtained by outsiders. How did it suddenly appear in the bounty hall of a remote town? Could it be a windfall? There's a hint of conspiracy here. No bounty hunter, who lives on the edge of a knife, would admit to being a fool. Most of them awkwardly averted their gaze, pretending to be nonchalant as they retreated from the hall. Those hidden beneath the black robes were mostly ordinary people. This kind of bounty mission, clearly marked with the exclusive ninja badge, was not something ordinary bounty hunters could attempt. While wishful thinking was appealing, suicide was foolish. The hall instantly emptied. Only 7 or 8 figures remained. Needless to say, since these people hadn't left, the bounty hunters were likely also ninjas, or at the very least, had some connection to the ninja clan. For example, they might be peripheral members of some ninja organization, or ordinary people remotely controlled by some rogue ninja hiding their true identities. Without a doubt, the vast majority of rogue ninjas were these ruthless, cunning old foxes. Their strength allowed them to harbor illusions, but their greed wouldn't allow them to leave. After all, this might be their only chance in life to come into contact with a Byakugan, and certainly not to escort it to Konoha for a reward. Could Konoha offer a reward more valuable than the Byakugan itself? Gentlemen, you can all see how strange this mission is. The person who posted the mission is obviously just an ordinary errand boy. The real person who posted the mission hasn't shown up yet. Perhaps they're hiding somewhere watching everything. Nobody knows where they got this white eye, why they posted this mission, or what their purpose is. But since the mission is posted here, I'll ask you one question: who is willing to take this mission? The recorder was also forcing himself to speak. He had been a bounty recorder in this remote town his whole life, and this was the first time he had encountered such a bizarre mission. This mission was clearly a cover, hiding an unknown conspiracy. It was very sinister. His lips were dry as he continued, "You have 2 hours to consider. I'll leave this wooden bottle containing the white eye on this table. There are no restrictions on the mission's level. Whoever is willing to take it, come over, sign for it, and then take it." The normal procedure for accepting bounty missions is to first categorize missions according to their reward and difficulty, then only bounty hunters of the corresponding level are eligible to accept them. Before accepting, a signature verification is required, and if the mission involves escorting valuable items, a deposit is also required, and photos are taken for record keeping. However, this mission itself didn't specify the reward, or perhaps it didn't need to be explicitly stated. The recorder stopped worrying about the procedure. The air temperature was subtly rising, and being in it felt like sitting on a volcano. He just wanted to get rid of this hot potato as soon as possible. The atmosphere seemed to freeze. No one looked away, but no one spoke. Exposing one's Byakugan to everyone's eyes, what's the point of entrusting this mission? It feels like a deliberately set trap. But what's the purpose? The wild, wandering ninja hidden under his hood frowned, his clever mind turning one twist after another, but he couldn't figure out the underlying purpose. The Byakugan is bait. Using such an expensive bait, does the client want someone to take the bait? Who could it be? A rogue ninja from a certain village, disguised, stared blankly. He also didn't think his village had the ability to go to such lengths to capture him. Is it to lure someone out? It can't be me. So, could I take advantage of this? A Byakugan, if I could get it. Someone thought he was clever, his breathing becoming rapid. Even if this is a trap, it can't be aimed at me. Most of the people who receive the information probably think like me. So, taking advantage of the chaos, with my strength, I have a very good chance. Someone was confident in his strength, lowering his voice to sneer. The real client must be observing nearby. He'll never let the Byakugan out of his sight. So, if I succeed in the end, I'll have to find a way to shake off the pursuit. Like a silent film, everyone's minds were racing, their IQs nearing their peak, mentally devising elaborate schemes called the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, master of fishing in troubled waters, using a tactic against a tactic, taking advantage of a vulnerability, and winning at life. Little did they know, they were overcomplicating things. In reality, they weren't planning to lure a specific target. It wasn't that sophisticated, they simply wanted to wipe them all out. If there was a specific target, it was a random kill of all ninjas within a 6-hour radius. Not far away, behind the antique shop owner who had removed his hood and disguised himself, sneaking away down a dark alley, a figure clung to the wall like a chameleon. Then, suddenly, footsteps sounded behind him. He whirled around, and a smiling face filled his pupils. "Were you looking for me?" He stiffly lowered his head, a short sword piercing his throat, protruding from the back of his neck. Blood gushed out, his chin slumped against the back of the blade, revealing a pointed, monkey-like face, lifeless. The first ninja's corpse had taken the bait. A bit ugly, Mayuri Kuratsuchi might not like this modified corpse's artificial body, right? Gin Ichimaru gently laid the corpse flat on the ground. The antique shop owner, head down, fleeing in the distance, didn't notice that the tales behind him had all been dealt with, 4 ordinary people and 1 ninja. He unfurled the sealing scroll, sealed the corpse securely, and tucked it into his sleeve. This was the only ninjutsu left behind by the original body that Ichimaru Jin hadn't rejected, and was fortunate enough to inherit and utilize its remaining value. It was also the only use for the meager amount of chakra left by the armor ghoul. After we've captured them all, I'll trouble the chairman to examine them all at once. Ichimaru Jin felt that the first corpse was unlikely to be a good match. After all, Chairman Nami had said that appearance also affected the success rate of compatibility. Mayuri Kuratsuchi's true appearance was alright, I guess. Meanwhile, Kaguya Nami was sitting cross-legged on the roof of the bounty hall, her eyes silently overlooking the entrance and exit beneath her white mask. The countdown on her retina was synchronized with the impending start of the game. Thanks to the cover artist, Yaoi Outway, it's really cool. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 You Can't Come Out. Among the bounty hunters who left early, 3 figures departed the group. One of them quietly followed the antique shop owner. His body, now cold, was preserved in a sealing scroll. 2 others went out, turned a corner, and circled back. One hid against the wall by the door, his body seemingly shrouding the light, disappearing into the darkness. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't light-blocking at all, rather, countless parasitic worms were emerging from his skin, wriggling and crawling all over his body, twisting and blending into the surrounding shadows. From a distance, he looked like a mosaic of shimmering shadows. Several parasitic worms detached from his body and silently flew into the hall, monitoring the movements within. His name was Abure Marinica. On the surface, he was an unknown bounty hunter, but in reality, he was a wandering ninja. On the surface, he was a wandering ninja, but in reality, he was an Anbu member of Konohagakure. On the surface, he was an Anbu member of Konohagakure, but in reality, he possessed the tongue-slaying seal. He was a Burame, a root member operating in the land of water. Don't ask why he was here. If where leaves dance, there is the will of fire, then, where shadows breed and multiply, there are also tentacles extending from root. The stench of conspiracy is too strong. Using a Byakugan to blatantly set a trap, who is the mastermind trying to hook? Or is he certain someone will take the bait? Could it be targeting me? A Konoha specialty that had been left out appeared before him. No Konoha ninja could remain unmoved, and Aburame felt a sense of unease. Another bounty hunter who had circled back removed his hood and put on a Kaguya Nami mask, his eyes extremely solemn. He had just received the latest intelligence and orders from the village that morning. The white eye beneath the blue eye mask was taken by an evil organization called the 13th Division. Could it be this very eye? The timing matches perfectly. So, this is a trap set by that evil organization. They might be observing this place from behind the scenes? The Kaguya Nami recalled the intelligence report's description of the 13th Division as evil, which emphasized the physical characteristics and wicked nature of two of its members. While pondering this, he climbed the wall and onto the roof, only to find someone already there, a man wearing a strange, pale white mask, his ink-black robe fluttering in the wind. A pair of dark, deep eyes met his gaze. He couldn't see through the mask, but he was smiling. The Kaguya Nami, as if struck by a sudden inspiration, realized the smile behind the mask was a mixture of elation and surprise, making the slits in the eyes appear like crescent moons. But he felt no warmth. Instead, a chilling coldness ran through him from head to toe. Hey, Gin Ichimaru is right. All we need to do is throw out a lure, and the fish will rise from the surface one by one. I can already smell the fragrance of a bountiful harvest in the air. The murmured voice spread through the air, and under the horrified gaze of the Kaguya Nami, a strange crimson color appeared on the black robe before them, like viscous blood seeping from the fabric, dripping onto the ground and instantly forming a river that meandered in all directions. The crimson color rushed towards them, and the meandering river of blood split open, branching into countless crimson tentacles that climbed over rooftops, spread over walls and pillars, and overflowed into the eaves, enveloping the bounty hall beneath their feet in an instant, even dragging the edges of the courtyard into the crimson hue. It's a long story, but in reality, it happened in an instant. A twisted, deformed, writhing, yet strangely beautiful, blood-red altar was constructed, centered on the masked man's feet. It ruthlessly swept into the net of the hidden figures on the rooftop, the worms lurking in the corners of the courtyard, and the group of clever people in the bounty hall. What's going on? Where did this blood come from? This blood looks like it's alive. The whole house seems to be swallowed by blood. Is someone secretly using ninjutsu? The blood in my body seems restless, a bit out of control. Damn it, I can't stay in this house any longer, I have to escape. The creatures shrouded in blood instinctively sensed something was wrong. Reason told them to escape immediately, but the lingering greed in their eyes couldn't be removed from their Byakugan. They were both terrified of the ominousness emanating from the blood and wary of those around them, their feet rooted to the spot by the blood on the ground. Do Benjin, accept this mission. The sudden turn of events stifled thought, his brain was instantly dominated by both fear and greed. One bounty hunter was the first to reach across the table, tucking the wooden bottle into his sleeve. He swayed, dodging the kunai shot from behind, flipped over the rooftop, and raced towards the outside. Like a signal for the game to begin, the other bounty hunters went berserk, chasing after him like hyenas fighting for food. In the corner of the courtyard, blood-stained parasitic worms detached in swathes, buzzing and swirling in the air like headless flies. The Aburame anaconda had never seen parasitic worms behave so out of control and with such fear. A sudden, intense gloom enveloped his heart. The simple thoughts of countless parasitic worms were eroded by chaos and fear, leaving only a single, collective thought, frantically circulating within his consciousness: escape. The feeling was as if, within the crimson blood he observed with his naked eye, some indescribable terror was awakening in some unseen place, greedily eyeing all living things in the area. Insects have a 100-fold stronger sense of danger than humans. The Aburame anaconda could no longer hide. He tore open the insect shell covering his body, and the sensation from his fingertips sent shivers down his spine. The outermost layer of the blood-stained shell crumbled like dust. The flesh inside had long since dried up and solidified, without a single drop of blood or pus. The Aburame anaconda's teeth chattered, and he felt his heart pounding violently. The blood within him seemed to be trying to burst his blood vessels, and his skin pores throbbed with a tearing pain. Run! The Aburame anaconda was terrified. He was already closest to the edge of the outer wall of the house, and after turning and taking a few steps, he was about to step into the crimson altar when he saw a tall, slender figure in a black robe blocking his way. You can't come out. The gentle voice carried a chilling, sinister undertone. A face as exquisitely handsome as a corpse, with eyes narrowed to slits, smiled coldly at the living amidst the blood, devoid of any warmth, as if gazing upon cold corpses. You can't not vote. Chapter 23 Skills that cause overflow damage. The moment the crimson light spread, the hidden Miss Anbu immediately turned and leaped off the roof. This was thanks to their intelligence. Although the intelligence focused on the masked man's vicious and cunning nature, its description of whose strength was vague. It was enough for the hidden Miss Anbu to make the most rational judgment. Generally speaking, the more eccentric and vicious a person's personality, the more terrifying their strength, a truth that had been proven by countless lives lost in the blood mist. Then, he landed, just as Dudenjin was brushing past him. The latter hadn't expected someone to fall from the roof. Slipping and stopping, a short sword used the momentum of his dive to sever Dudenjin's wrist. The wrist, still attached to the severed sleeve, spun, the spurting blood being swallowed by the crimson light. Even before hitting the ground, the wrist was visibly ashen white. Dudenjin screamed in agony as he clutched his severed wrist, only to see a cloud of blood gushing from the wound like a floodgate bursting. His entire body was drained of blood in a second, devoured by the terrifying force hidden within the crimson. The scream abruptly ceased, and his deathly pale, wax-sculpted corpse collapsed to the ground. The bounty hunters chasing behind him stopped abruptly, terrified by the brutality of the attack. Little did they know, the mist shadow Anbu is the one truly horrified. The blood-soaked visual effects had nothing to do with him. It's like there's an invisible monster sucking blood in this crimson. The mist shadow Anbu picked up a wooden bottle, his heart pounding with fear, not wanting to linger in the crimson for even a second longer. He gradually caught up with the Aburame serpent, who stood motionless at the edge of the crimson, and saw the same squinting, smiling face blocking his way. The chilling aura sent shivers down his spine, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. It was another evil member of the Gotei 13, codenamed Gin Ichimaru, with cage-level strength. The Aburame serpent dared not move. Even though being surrounded by crimson light made his heart tremble, he dared not take a single step forward. Even though Gin Ichimaru simply stood there smiling, it instilled in him a fear as if he were standing on the edge of an abyss. It was as if he were at the entrance to the underworld, a tremor rising from the depths of his soul. The parasitic worms within his body, which had been so terrified just moments before, were now lying lifeless like corpses. The parasitic worms were collectively feigning death. They would rather be devoured by the crimson light and reduced to empty shells than attract the slightest attention from the person before them. The figure blocking the crimson light was more terrifying than the crimson light itself. A dilemma. The Aburame serpent decided to trust the parasitic insect's instincts. He stood rooted to the spot, not daring to cross the line. The Kaguya Nami gritted his teeth and stepped forward. He had been tricked by Ao, because the intelligence report had been highlighted in blood by Ao. The masked man was likely stronger than Ichimaru, and his personality was definitely more wicked. Unfortunately, you made the wrong choice. Ichimaru looked at the Kaguya Nami who had stepped out of the bloodlined area, said only a few words, and his figure vanished from the spot. He instantly appeared 30 meters away. His short sword drawn and held horizontally, pointing at the Kaguya Nami's forehead. Stepped aside? No, it was to avoid getting his clothes stained with the blood of the dead. Shoot him, divine shot. The Kaguya Nami's mask cracked open, revealing a frozen expression. His trembling pupils didn't even have time to show any pain before the blade pierced through his brain and spinal cord, melting the brain matter inside his skull in an instant. The corpse flew high into the air, then fell backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing into the blood-soaked ground. The wooden bottle, which had slipped from her grasp, flew out and landed upside down at the feet of the Aburame anaconda. The blood on the blade was licked clean by the blood mist, and the sheathed blade swiftly retracted into its short form. Gin Ichimaru lightly brushed away the bloody scent carried by the wind, a faint smile still lingering on his face. All of this, though it sounds like a long story, actually happened in the blink of an eye. By the standards of a ninja's lightning-fast reflexes, only 1.7 seconds had passed. Greed subsided like a receding tide, replaced by fear that gripped their souls. The bounty hunters, who had been meticulously planning their scenarios, regained their senses amidst the bloodshed. They stared intently at the two corpses on the ground, one drained of blood, resembling a wax figure, the other with a frozen, stiff expression, chilling to the bone. Their gazes were so focused, as if they had necrophilia, that even the small wooden bottle that had just been chased was ignored. The Aburame anaconda's neck stiffened. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of a blood-stained black robe. The robed figure had somehow appeared, picked up the small wooden bottle at her feet, and casually removed the stopper, letting the blood drip into her palm. Luckily it wasn't broken. "This is my only art collection, Gin Ichimaru." The voice seemed slightly annoyed. He glanced around at the bounty hunters, and only then did the Aburame anaconda see that the person wore a stark white mask. But stained with blood, it looked as if the skin had been torn off, revealing a blood-soaked, featureless face, a demonic sight. "Is there anyone among you who isn't a ninja?" Without giving anyone a chance to answer, the voice spoke for itself. "It doesn't matter if there isn't. Those who make a living in the black market are unlikely to be good people anyway. So, let's leave it at that." The speech was rapid, almost as if timed perfectly. The person finished speaking, snapped their fingers, and announced in a barely audible voice, "Blood sacrifice." No one else heard it, except for the woman standing nearby, the anaconda. He was still wondering about the meaning of blood sacrifice, but the scene before him perfectly answered his question. The blood-red altar emitted a bewitching light, and the pervasive crimson light silently transformed into blood rain, flowing over skin. Then, those touched by the blood rain, whether living, dead, or trapped insects, all had their blood vessels burst, blood surging and squeezing from their pores, splashing and merging with the blood rain. The blood rain came quickly and went quickly, like a real storm, brewing for a long time but instantly pouring down, washing the earth clean and changing the world. The crimson altar vanished, the connecting bloodlines floated up and swallowed Kaguya Nami's body. The blood that had seeped into her robes faded, and the air was clean and fresh, free of impurities. It smelled wonderful. Like spring, only rows of bloodless wax figures lay scattered on the ground, exuding an abstract, ink-like quality. Name, blood sacrifice. Type, active skill. Quality, A. Details, releases blood to baptize an area. The sacrifice is complete after 2.9 seconds. All enemies within the area will be damaged and silenced. Mana cost, 120. Sacrifice range, 60 meters. Damage, 240. Silence duration, 6s. Cooldown, 12s. Last time, releasing Kaguya Nami on 2 water clones didn't feel anything special. This time, the bloodletting from a real life, that different, special texture, gave him a more realistic understanding of the skill. Real people don't have bodies with the same quantifiable data as game characters. Ninjas are typically high attack, low defense classes. Forget about the 240-point damage calculation, even a single point of damage to a vital point can be fatal. This means that the actual damage output of game skills transferred to reality would far exceed the statistical data. Of course, this is great, and Kaguya Nami is perfectly content. It's not without its flaws. A 2.9 second casting delay is too long, and the skill coverage isn't wide enough. Still not strong enough. Thinking about it carefully, I lack strong crowd control skills, slowing skills, burst skills, survival skills, critical strike skills, and movement skills. Only with 100 skills to combine can I slightly escape the protection of my subordinates and go solo. Kaguya Nami has a very clear understanding of reality. Since 100 skills are still a long way off, she can only add some subordinates to take the blame, shoulder the responsibility, and create value for her in the meantime. Chapter 24, Unsealing Mayuri Kuratsuchi. A few minutes later. In the empty bounty hall, 13 corpses were neatly arranged on the floor. Kaguya Nami half squatted down, touching the chest of each corpse to assess their quality. Her movements were precise, her expression solemn and serious, the whole process appearing mysterious, high-class, and sophisticated. At least, that's what Ichimaru, who had been watching and scrutinizing the details, thought. He couldn't see how the chairman was testing the suitability of these corpses, he only saw them being judged as either unqualified or incompatible, and then removed. There were 2 unqualified corpses, one was the recorder, just an ordinary person, the other was an empty shell, its mouth exaggeratedly wide open, drooling sticky saliva, and looking down into its mouth and esophagus revealed emptiness, like the hardened shell of a snake's shed skin. 1. The remains of a human. Or Ichimaru. Kaguya Nami stared suspiciously at the empty shell in her hand, immediately associating it with a name. She couldn't help it, this drool-covered, chilling, and disgusting characteristic was practically unique in the ninja world, its personal style was just too strong. So, Ichimaru was here just now, hiding among these foolish bounty hunters? Kaguya Nami pinched the empty shell, not minding its slippery feel, and slowly pulled and stretched the stiff face, like restoring a flat photograph before her eyes. She thought to herself, this is what my Orochimaru looks like now. She glanced around the room, finding no trace of Orochimaru. It seemed he had already left. She gave a slight, regretful twitch of her lips. Who is this? Ichimaru Jin took 2 steps back, frowning as he asked. Ichimaru Jin only retained a limited portion of the original body's memories related to ninja world knowledge, the rest had either perished during the awakening process or been actively deleted by him. Orochimaru, a character with a very important role, is arguably the pinnacle of intelligence in the ninja world. He's likely the man who has mastered the most ninjutsu and developed the most forbidden techniques among all existing ninjas. A mad scientist who pursues knowledge by any means necessary and yearns for immortality. Kaguya Nami looked down on ninjas, a group with narrow values, but she still admired some of their outstanding intellectuals. When she watched Naruto in her previous life, she preferred characters like Orochimaru, Sasori, and Kabuto to those immature, world-destroying idiots. Their values were clearly more normal and progressive, full of philosophical thought and universal value. A ninja world version of Mayuri Kuratsuchi? Then why is he here? Ichimaru Jin didn't expect Nami to have such a high opinion of this person. Logically, such a person wouldn't be so easily swayed by a Byakugan. Maybe it was just a coincidence, and he was bored and just wanted to watch a show, so he was a little careless and got tricked by the power of the blood sacrifice. Haha. Kaguya Nami, with her profound directorial skills, could only come up with this plausible explanation. She couldn't think of any other possibility. It couldn't be that Orochimaru thought he had encountered a novel ninjutsu and insisted on testing it himself, could it? What a pity, we were so close to getting this dead snake's corpse. Ichimaru Jin looked somewhat regretful. Since he and Mayuri Kuratsuchi are both typical mad scientists, his corpse should be a particularly good fit, right? Judging from his conflicted expression, he seemed to be calculating in his mind how likely it was to find it within the remaining time if they went to look for it now. Kaguya Nami's face stiffened slightly, belatedly realizing she had missed out on a windfall. Yet, how many achievement points can Orochimaru's corpse be converted into? Maybe I can unlock Mayuri Kuratsuchi at the lowest price. Wouldn't it be better to use the saved achievement points for a lottery? Appreciation? Appreciation is nothing compared to a lottery. In her past life, her psychologist said that Kaguya Nami was a typical utilitarian egoist. It seems that this illness stubbornly followed her into the afterlife. Captain Gin Ichimaru, you're right. A more suitable corpse is the best way to ensure Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi's lifelong safety. Since we still have more than 3 hours left, let's keep looking. What if we're lucky and run into him again? After saying that, Kaguya Nami quickly finished examining the remaining corpses one by one. Then she pointed to the last corpse, whose clothes were covered with parasitic insect eggs, and said quietly, this one is the most suitable. Let's take him with us. Gin Ichimaru sealed the corpse of the Abure Mori into a scroll and put it close to his body. Kaguya Nami glanced one last time at the corpses strewn across the ground. In a rush, there was no time for proper burial. Suddenly, she slapped her forehead, folded and bound Orochimaru's remains, and shoved them into the bewildered arms of Ichimaru Jin, saying languidly, this thing is quite rare, it's a shame to throw it away, so I'll keep it. Maybe it'll come in handy someday. Ichimaru Jin covered his nose in disgust, sealed the remains and the corpse of the Aburame serpent in his arms into a scroll, then held it up with 2 fingers, feeling the scroll was moldy and decaying. You have acquired a rare work of art. You currently possess 2 rare collectibles, Artist's Collection Exhibition. 2/6, gained 1000 achievement points. Kaguya Nami beamed, feeling her luck was on her side. She licked her lips, letting out a chilling laugh. 3 hours later, in the unknown wilderness, the moon hung high in the sky. Gin Ichimaru unfurled the sealing scroll again, took out the corpse of the Aburame anaconda, and laid it out on the ground. They abandoned their search for Orochimaru's trail. Countdown. 12-minute 44s. Achievement points. 4187. Let's begin. Kaguya Nami exhaled deeply, reaching out to touch the Aburame anaconda's chest. The prompt reappeared on her retina. Found a fresh corpse, worth 5000 achievement points. Perform artificial body modification. Yes, please select the target to unseal and pay the achievement points. Kaguya Nami closed her eyes, her consciousness immersing in the Seireitei. The vertical eye in the sky focused its gaze on the 12 figures at the top center. Unlike the utter silence of her first visit, this time, As if sensing something, a gentle breeze slowly stirred the hori of the 12 squad leaders. I choose to unseal Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi. As the words fell, Mayuri Kuratsuchi's figure vanished from the seal of time, leaving only 11 figures standing alone at the top center, posing forlornly. A soft voice murmured in the air, "Hey, the order in which you captains were awakened wasn't my decision. I mainly followed Captain Gin Ichimaru's advice. After all, you've been colleagues for hundreds of years, he knows you all very well. I have a ranking of you here, I'll relay it to you. Thanks for the donation, it will be added to next week's thank you list." Chapter 25 Awakening Squad Leader Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Mayuri Kuratsuchi, Captain of the 12th Division. 27000-36000, unsealing confirmed, original unsealing price. 36,000 points. 5,000 points discount for finding a suitable corpse. 10% off promotion, actual achievement points paid. 3,100, calculation formula, 36000-5000, 10% equals 3,100, character unsealed, Mayuri Kuratsuchi. You have gained the loyalty of Mayuri Kuratsuchi, Captain of the 12th Division of the Gotei 13. P.S. Under the constraints of the cheat, this character cannot betray in any way. Perfect grade armored prosthetic body in production. The current entity has been found to have special characteristics, classifying it as a symbiotic insect body cultivated using secret techniques. Do you wish to retain this characteristic in the armored prosthetic body? A line of subtitles flashed across her retina. Kaguya Nami abruptly opened her eyes, staring at the corpse of the Abure Anaconda. If her eyes could see through things, she would see that the blood vessels, muscles, and even organs inside the corpse were covered with black tumors, resembling cancerous tumors spreading throughout the body. In reality, however, they were symbiotic insect nests, densely packed with the corpses of insects. The Aburean clan's parasitic insect technique uses a special secret method to construct the body into a nest of insects, thereby driving the parasites within to fight. Kaguya Nami, putting herself in Mayuri Kuratsuchi's shoes, made the right choice. Desolate wilderness, wild hills, withered vines, corpses. In the harmonious picture, a sinister black mist rose from the corpse's surface. Tiny insect-like corpses drifted out from its pores, silently merging into the mist. The shriveled shells absorbed the mist, eerily reviving, and rustling together to weave a thick black fog that covered the corpse's surface. To Ichimaru, watching from the side, this scene looked like countless insects frantically devouring the corpse. The original facial features were being gnawed into new shapes, and muscles and bones were being reshaped and deformed little by little, eerily and slowly being pulled into new human form. This process lasted for several minutes. Ichimaru's Adam's apple bobbed, feeling somewhat uneasy. So this is the process of shaping an armored ghoul? It's unexpectedly disgusting. So, when I was awakened, did I experience something similar? Ichimaru had opened his eyes prematurely during the later stages of the ghoul shaping process, so he didn't know the earlier stages. Now, he could undoubtedly make full use of his imagination to deduce the process. A while later, the insect mist gradually thinned, and layers of insects burrowed into the upgraded and repaired insect nest inside the cybernetic body. The plump, dark tumors resembled bunches of glistening black grapes, adding an elegant and noble hue to the interior space of the cybernetic body. The habitable atmosphere was far stronger than that inside the original Abure Anaconda. Outside, a black and white mask took shape on the sculpted face, and a pair of dark yellow eyes eagerly opened. Mayuri Kuratsuchi was intoxicated by the vibrant life-filled body, his eyes darting around as insects crawled. He blinked, his gaze filled with a frenzied curiosity that seemed to overflow. Awakening successful. Gin Ichimaru exhaled calmly. To be honest, he had watched the entire process without understanding a single detail of how the awakening ritual was performed. President Nami had only touched the corpse once, and then made no other move. A touch, and the corpse was transformed. Mayuri Kuratsuchi was awakened. Gin Ichimaru, of course, wouldn't be so foolish as to think that this only proved that the profound and mysterious things hidden behind it were completely beyond his comprehension, and even if the whole process were exposed right under his nose, he wouldn't be able to observe it at all. Completely incomprehensible, and the one manipulating all of this was naturally Kaguya Nami. The methods of the successor to the Spirit King, President Nami, are completely beyond my imagination. Can Mayuri Kuratsuchi possibly break the restraints that bind my soul with such methods? Gin Ichimaru stared blankly at Kaguya Nami's back, lost in thought. President Nami might be hiding even more unknown methods. Was President Nami's revealed strength really his true strength? Or was it possible that he only showed me this much? Like only the tip of an iceberg exposed on the surface, while a vast and unknown shadow was hidden beneath the water. A gloomy cloud settled over Gin Ichimaru's heart. He suddenly realized that his wishful thinking was probably going to fail. Could Mayuri Kuratsuchi really break through such incomprehensible methods? Mayuri Kuratsuchi greedily inhaled the fresh air, meticulously appreciating the perfection of this armored remains, and adjusting and decomposing the fragments of remaining body memories. The diverse ninjutsu, strange secret techniques, and inconceivable forbidden arts were all refreshing, giving him the feeling of knocking on the door of a new world. A strange energy manipulation technology. Even just glimpsing a corner from the memory fragments was enough to excite Mayuri Kuratsuchi to the point of trembling. The emergence of a new technology, even if it was still immature and weak in some aspects, was enough to spark dazzling ideas in his mind. The perfect armored remains, the worms crawling inside, the constant sparks of thought in his mind, everything filled Mayuri Kuratsuchi with novelty and pleasure. He slowly grinned, revealing a wanton and maniacal laugh. He. The black-covered eyeshadow and nose twitched with pleasure, the white-outlined lips and teeth stretched exaggeratedly wide, the entire black and white mask hysterically announcing its arrival to this unfamiliar world. After a moment, Mayuri Kuratsuchi suppressed his hysterical laughter. He got up from the ground, casually brushed the dirt and dust off his Shinigami suit, and then elegantly twirled around on tiptoe, examining himself. He clicked his tongue in amazement, saying, "Perfect height and physique, this is me. I love this cybernetic body." Gin Ichimaru stood by, squinting without saying a word. Why did Mayuri Kuratsuchi's expression and tone seem so genuinely joyful? Did he notice the terrifying restraints within this cybernetic body? Could it be that he was also acting? Thank you for the most generous gift from His Majesty the Successor Soul King. The technology displayed by this armed cybernetic body fascinates me. It is my greatest honor to be awakened from the river of time. Please allow me to offer you my sincerest respect and loyalty. Mayuri Kuratsuchi bowed forward like a swan, stretching his neck. No need to be so polite, Captain Kuratsuchi. I'm just glad you don't mind me adding the insect hive internal modifications to this armored prosthetic body without my permission. Kaguya Nami could sense the sincerity in Kuratsuchi's tone. She believed he wasn't putting on an act, every word he spoke came from the heart. Imprisonment. Restraint. Without any flaws or loopholes, it was unbelievably perfect, almost like a creation of truth itself. Although I once said I hated perfection, that it prevented me from seeing any room for improvement, forgive my arrogance and foolishness. That was false perfection. When true perfection appears, you can only feel a suffocating shallowness and ignorance. It's the happiness of seeing light from the bottom of an abyss. That is true perfection, it is truth. And at this moment, truth is fused with body and soul, making me feel with every breath that I am sensing the infinite distance between myself and truth. What happiness and greatness this is. Of course, Your Majesty the Great Spirit King. Mayuri Kuratsuchi stared intently at Kaguya Nami, as if on a pilgrimage to the embodiment of truth. His tone was filled with barely concealed excitement and fervor. Could you remove the mask from your face so that this humble Mayuri Kuratsuchi may witness your true self? You don't need to be so polite. Just call me Kaguya Nami, or President. Kaguya Nami gently removed the mask from her face, revealing her pale, handsome true face. Her dark, deep eyes smiled as she looked at Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Don't forget to greet your old friend. Captain Gin Ichimaru has praised you quite a bit in my presence. Kaguya Nami noticed the twitching at the corner of Gin Ichimaru's mouth, and her smile widened even more. Gin Ichimaru wasn't sure if Mayuri Kuratsuchi was acting. This dialogue, this acting, was he serious? I've been on IV drips at the hospital these past 2 days. Updates might be unstable, depending on the situation. I estimate it will be fine tomorrow. If there are any missed updates, cough cough, I'll make up for them later. I swear on my life. Please vote for me with your monthly tickets. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.